My granddaughter asked me why I chose a house with a flagpole. I told her so her mother could see it from heaven. I didn't know that answer would start a war. The moving truck sat in the driveway of 1247 Desert Rose Lane like a promise, or maybe a threat. I couldn't tell yet. The Arizona sun hammered down on Saguaro Hills with the kind of heat that makes everything shimmer, makes the world look like it's melting at the edges. August in the desert. The temperature had already climbed past 105 by 9 in the morning. Heat waves rippled off the pavement. The air tasted like dust and creosote. Every breath felt like inhaling from an oven. 3 months since Mom died. 3 months since Emma lost the last person who remembered her mother alive besides me. 3 months of bouncing between temporary housing and hotel rooms while I searched for something permanent, something that felt like it could be home. 3 months of watching Emma's eyes go distant when other kids talked about their families. 3 months of her asking the same question in different ways. Are we staying this time? Can we stop moving? Is this forever? Emma stood on the sidewalk clutching her backpack with both hands. 9 years old, and she'd already buried more people than most adults. Her mother Jessica at 7, my mother at 8.5, and before that, memories too faint to hold on to clearly. Her grandfather Tom, my husband, the man who taught me that being FBI meant protecting people, not just catching criminals. He'd been dead 6 years now, killed in the line of duty. The words sounded noble when they came from the bureau. They sounded empty when I tried to explain to a 3-year-old why Grandpa wasn't coming home. The backpack Emma held contained everything she considered essential: a photo of her mother, a stuffed rabbit Tom had won at a carnival the week before he died, a journal my mother had given her with the instruction to write down memories before they faded, 3 rocks she'd collected from places we'd lived, small smooth stones that fit in her palm, physical proof that those places had been real, that she'd existed there, that moving hadn't erased her. I watched Emma study the house. Single-story, territorial style, beige stucco that matched every other house on the street, desert landscaping with precisely trimmed barrel cactus and agave plants positioned at exact intervals, the mailbox aligned perfectly with the curb. Not a weed visible anywhere. The whole neighborhood looked like someone had used a ruler and a level to place every single element. Planned community. That's what the realtor called it. What I saw was control. What Emma saw, I hoped, was stability. She didn't say anything for a long moment, just stood there taking it in, her face doing that thing it did when she was processing something big. The same expression she'd had at her mother's funeral, at my mother's memorial service. That look of a child trying to be brave while the world kept teaching her that nothing permanent existed. The flagpole stood 27 feet tall in the front yard. The previous owners had been military, Air Force, transferred to Germany and couldn't take their pole with them, left it as part of the sale. The American flag caught the breeze, that distinct sound of fabric snapping in wind. Next to it, the POWMIA flag, black and white. Never forget. Emma's eyes fixed on those flags and something in her face softened. Just like Grandpa's house, she said. Her voice carried across the space between us. Small, hopeful, afraid to hope too much. Just like Grandpa's house, I confirmed. I didn't tell her that I'd chosen this house specifically because of that flagpole, that I'd looked at 17 other properties and kept coming back to this one, that I needed Emma to see something permanent flying, something that couldn't be packed in a box and moved again. Flags meant you were staying. Flags meant this ground mattered. Tom had taught me that. Raised the flag every morning of our marriage, lowered it every evening, rain or shine, sick or healthy, right up until the morning he didn't come home. A neighbor appeared from the house next door. Older man, maybe late 50s, with the posture of someone who'd spent time in uniform. He walked with purpose, but not aggression. Careful steps, assessing eyes. He caught my attention immediately, and I felt my training kick in. Reading body language, cataloging details, former military, recent widower based on the pale line on his ring finger, where a wedding band used to sit. Living alone based on the single coffee cup on his porch table. Probably spent his career teaching based on the patient way he approached. Name's Ben Rodriguez, he said. Saw the moving truck. Thought you might need a hand. He didn't wait for my answer. Just walked to the truck and picked up a box marked kitchen. carried it like it weighed nothing. Emma watched him with the careful attention kids develop when they've learned that adults can't always be trusted to stay. Over the next 2 hours, Ben helped unload the truck. Didn't ask invasive questions. Didn't pry. Just worked. The kind of help that respects boundaries. When we finished, he nodded once and headed back to his house. At his door, he paused. "Welcome to the neighborhood," he said. "Fair warning, though. HOA president runs this place tight. Real tight. You'll meet her soon enough." The way he said it made my stomach tighten. Not anger in his voice, resignation, the sound of someone who'd learned to keep his head down. That evening, Emma and I unpacked her room first. Photos of Jessica on the dresser. Her mother's smile captured in frames. Emma arranged them carefully, touched each one, whispered something I couldn't hear. Then she opened the box with Tom's shadow box. His FBI badge, his service weapon, the folded flag from his funeral. She carried it to my room and placed it on my nightstand without asking. "This goes here," she said, "so you can see it every morning." The matter-of-fact way she said it broke something in my chest. This child understood loss in ways no 9-year-old should. She'd learned to carry grief like a backpack, something heavy she couldn't put down but could organize and manage. Bedtime came. Emma in her new room with her old stuffed animals arranged on the bed. I sat on the edge reading her the same story I'd read the night her mother died. The night my mother died. The same words offering the same comfort. When I finished, Emma looked at me with those eyes that saw too much. "Will we be happy here?" she asked. Not can we be happy. Will we be happy? Like she was asking for a guarantee, a promise, something certain in a world that had taught her nothing was certain. I wanted to say yes. Wanted to promise that this house, this street, this carefully controlled community would give us what we needed. But I'd made promises before. Promised her mother would be fine after the accident. Promised her great-grandmother would beat the cancer. Promises I believed when I made them. Promises that turned into lies. So I said the only truth I could. "We'll build a life here," I told her, "together. And I will do everything in my power to keep you protected." She studied my face, looking for the lie, the hedge, the escape clause, found none. "Okay," she said, "then we'll stay." After she fell asleep, I walked through the house checking locks. Old habit, FBI training mixed with paranoia earned through experience. I noticed details the realtor hadn't mentioned. Security camera mounts on several neighboring houses all pointed toward the street. HOAGYU required, probably. The complete absence of anything personal in any visible yard. No garden gnomes, no wind chimes, no children's toys left out. Everything tucked away. Everything controlled. I made coffee and sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky purple and orange. The flag moved in the evening breeze. Constant. Reliable. My phone buzzed. Text from my partner, Michelle Torres. "Settled in yet?" she wrote. "Getting there," I replied. "Quiet neighborhood." "Quiet's good. You've earned quiet." I wanted to believe that. Wanted to think that after 28 years with the Bureau, after losing Tom, after raising Emma through more trauma than any kid should face, I'd earned some peace. But peace felt foreign, felt like something other people got. I was used to watching for threats, used to building cases, used to the hunt. The next morning at 7:30, a silver Lexus pulled up in front of my house. A woman emerged, late 50s, perfectly styled blonde hair that hadn't moved in the Arizona wind, expensive casual clothes that screamed country club, Lululemon yoga pants that had never seen a yoga studio, diamond tennis bracelet catching the morning sun, makeup applied with professional precision. She carried a wicker basket and wore a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I recognized the type immediately. 28 years investigating white-collar crime teaches you to spot predators in nice clothes. The ones who use charm like a weapon. The ones who believe their position and presentation put them above suspicion. I'd interviewed hundreds of them. Bank executives who embezzled pension funds, corporate officers who defrauded investors, real estate developers who ran Ponzi schemes. They all had that same smile, that same assumption that niceness equaled trustworthiness. She walked up my driveway with the confidence of someone who owned the ground she walked on. Not just metaphorically. The way she moved suggested she truly believed this street, these houses, this entire community belonged to her. Emma was inside eating breakfast. I stepped out to meet this woman on the porch. Home advantage, my territory. Never let a potential threat enter your space until you've assessed them. Tom's rule. FBI rule. Life rule. Good morning, she said. I'm Patricia Holloway. Everyone calls me Trish. I'm the HOA president. Wanted to welcome you to Saguaro Hills. She extended the basket. Inside, muffins in plastic wrap, a folder of HOA documents, a list of approved vendors for landscaping, pest control, house painting. The basket felt less like a welcome and more like a manual. Instructions for compliance. Sarah Mitchell, I said, taking the basket. This is very kind. Trish's eyes scanned past me into the house, looking for something, cataloging, assessing, the same way I looked at crime scenes. I like to meet all our new residents personally, she said. Saguaro Hills is a very special community. We've maintained the highest property values in the region for 8 consecutive years. That doesn't happen by accident. The way she said it, maintained, not built, not earned, maintained. Like property values were a garden that required constant weeding. I can show you around if you'd like, she continued. Point out some of our community standards. Help you understand how we do things here. It wasn't a question. It was an assumption. I'd seen this before in witnesses who thought they controlled the interview. The ones who believed their position gave them authority over federal agents. They were always surprised when they learned otherwise. But I wasn't here as an agent. I was here as a grandmother trying to give Emma stability. So I nodded and followed Trish on her tour. She walked me through the neighborhood, pointing out violations in the tone of someone teaching a slow child. That house there, mailbox is 2 inches too far from the curb. We've cited them. That one, unapproved holiday decorations left up past January 10th. That one, car parked on the street overnight. Against covenant rules. Each observation delivered with satisfaction. Each violation noted like a prosecutor listing charges. I watched her face as she spoke, micro-expressions, the slight curl of her lip when mentioning violations, the way her eyes lit up when discussing fines. This wasn't about community standards. This was about power. We ended the tour back at my house, Trish's eyes fixed on the flagpole. That's quite tall, she said. 27 feet, I confirmed. We'll need to verify it meets specifications. It's legal, I said. Previous owners had it approved. Trish smiled, tight, cold. Previous owners followed proper procedures, she said. Submitted applications, paid processing fees. I don't see any documentation from you. I moved in yesterday. Then you have time to get it sorted. Section 8.4 of the covenant. No structures over 15 feet without board approval. Processing fee is $2,500. Variance approval takes 30 days. I felt something shift in my chest. The same feeling I got when a suspect lied to my face. When someone thought they could manipulate me because I looked like somebody's grandmother. When they forgot that grandmothers could be federal agents. I'll review the covenant, I said carefully. Please do, Trish replied. We're all patriots here. We honor the flag, but rules exist for a reason. Community standards matter. You understand. She left. Silver Lexus pulling away smooth and silent. I stood holding her welcome basket and felt the first whisper of something I'd hoped to leave behind. The sense that I was about to build a case. Inside, Emma was clearing her breakfast dishes. Careful, methodical, wiping down the counter. 9 years old, and she cleaned like she was erasing evidence of her existence. I made a mental note to talk to her therapist about that. Was that lady nice? Emma asked. I considered the question. Considered lying. Considered telling Emma that adults were complicated and nice was a simple word for complex situations. Instead, I told her the truth. She thinks she is, I said, but I'm not sure yet. Emma nodded. She'd learned to trust my instincts. 3 days passed. Quiet days. Unpacking, setting up. Emma starting at her new school. I worked from the home office the bureau set up for me. Financial crimes don't stop because an agent relocates. I had cases to review, reports to file, a task force meeting scheduled by video conference. On the 4th morning, I found the citation taped to my front door. Official HOA violation notice. Flagpole height exceeds covenant standards. Section 8.4. Fine $500. Increasing $100 per day until remedied. Failure to comply will result in property lien and possible foreclosure proceedings. Signed, Patricia Holloway, HOA President. Emma found me reading it. She saw my face and her whole body tensed. Are we in trouble? She asked. The fear in her voice, the automatic assumption that trouble meant loss, meant packing, meant leaving. I knelt down to her level. "No, baby," I said. "We're not in trouble. Someone thinks we are, but they're wrong." I called the city planning office, verified the flagpole met all municipal codes, called the county recorder, confirmed no height restrictions in the original HOA covenant, called the previous owners, now in Germany. They answered on video chat, and I saw their faces change when I mentioned Trish Holloway. "She tried the same thing with us," the wife said, cited us for the flag, we fought it, showed her the covenant had no height limit. She backed down but made our lives hell for 6 months. That's why we took the transfer to Germany. We couldn't deal with it anymore. After the call, I sat at my desk looking at the citation. $500, increasing daily, for flying the American flag on my own property, for honoring my dead husband, for giving Emma something permanent to look at. I could pay the fine, take down the flag, avoid the conflict, keep my head down like Ben Rodriguez suggested, give Emma the quiet life she deserved. But something in me refused. The same something that made me join the FBI. The same something that made me spend 28 years chasing white-collar criminals who thought their money and position put them above the law. The same something that made me promise Tom I'd teach Emma to stand up for right even when it cost something. I called Trish Holloway's cell phone, number on the citation. She answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said, "I assume you're calling about your violation." "I'm calling about your mistake," I said. "The covenant has no height restriction for flagpoles. I verified with the county and the previous owners." Silence, then a sound like paper rustling. "The covenant may not explicitly state it," Trish said, "but we've always maintained aesthetic standards. The board has the authority to enforce community norms even when not specifically written." "Show me that authority," I said. "I'm sorry," Trish said. "Not sorry at all. Show me in the covenant where the board has authority to create rules not written in the governing documents." More silence, longer this time. "Mrs. Mitchell," Trish finally said, her voice changing, harder. "You're new here. You don't understand how Saguaro Hills works. We've built something special. We protect that. If you're not willing to be part of this community, to follow our standards, perhaps you should reconsider your choice of residence." There it was, the threat under the politeness, the iron fist under the velvet glove. "I'll see you at the next board meeting," I said. "I'm appealing this citation." I hung up before she could respond. Emma had been listening from the hallway. I saw her face, scared but also something else, watching to see what I'd do, learning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I reviewed the HOA documents Trish had given me, read every page, made notes, cross-referenced with Arizona state law, found something interesting. Arizona Senate Bill 1031 protects the right of homeowners to display the American flag regardless of HOA rules. State law supersedes covenant restrictions. I had her, legally, completely. This wasn't about the flag anymore. This was about testing me, about establishing dominance, about showing the new resident who was in charge. At midnight, my phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. "Be careful with Trish. She doesn't forget. She doesn't forgive. Others have tried to fight her. They all left. Think about your granddaughter." I stared at that message for a long time. Anonymous. Untraceable. Warning or threat? I couldn't tell. But one thing was clear. Trish Holloway had done this before, had targeted people, had won. I thought about Emma sleeping down the hall, about the promises I'd made, about the life I wanted to build for us. Then I thought about the flag flying outside, about Tom raising it every morning, about Emma's face when she saw it and said just like Grandpa's house. I texted back. "Thanks for the warning. I'm staying." The board meeting was scheduled for Monday night at 7, Community Center. I spent the weekend preparing, printed copies of the covenant, Arizona state law, city codes, previous owner's testimony, photos of my documentation. I built a case file like I was going to trial, because in a way, I was. Emma asked to stay home with Ben Rodriguez, who'd offered to babysit. I agreed. This wasn't something for her to see, not yet. The community center was already packed when I arrived at 6:45. 67 residents by my count. Most older, retired. They sat in folding chairs arranged in neat rows. The room smelled like coffee and tension. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A projector screen hung at the front. American flag in the corner, Arizona state flag beside it. Everything orderly, everything controlled. They looked at me with a mix of curiosity and something else. Pity, maybe. Or recognition. The look you give someone about to walk into a trap. A few offered small encouraging nods. Most avoided eye contact completely. Several whispered to each other when I entered. The new neighbor. The one with the flag. The one who challenged Trish. Trish sat at a table at the front of the room. 4 other board members flanked her, all watching her, waiting for her cues. I recognized the dynamic immediately. Cult of personality, authoritarian structure, one person in control, everyone else afraid to challenge. The board members looked like hostages at their own meeting, shoulders tight, eyes down unless Trish was looking at them directly. I took a seat in the 3rd row, positioned myself where I could see everyone, where I had clear sight lines to all exits. Old habit. FBI training. Always know your escape routes. Always position yourself for tactical advantage. Always assume things could go wrong. A woman in her 60s sat next to me. Asian, Korean maybe. Elegant posture despite the cheap folding chair. Professional looking. Designer glasses. Clothes that suggested money but not ostentation. She gave me a small nod. Brief, discreet. Like she didn't want Trish to see her acknowledging me. "Helen Park," she whispered. "Good luck." The way she said it. Not hopeful, not encouraging. A warning disguised as well wishes. The meeting started. Trish presiding like a judge, calling the room to order with 3 sharp raps of a gavel. Unnecessary but symbolic. A reminder of who held the power here. She read through the agenda in a voice that brooked no interruption. Old business, new business, landscaping contracts approved, special assessment voted on, paint color applications reviewed and mostly denied, every motion passing unanimously, no discussion, no debate, just Trish stating positions and the board rubber stamping them. When she said approved, 4 hands went up. When she said denied, 4 heads nodded, like puppets, like trained animals responding to signals. I watched the audience watch this performance. Some taking notes, some recording on phones, but most just sitting there accepting it, resigned, defeated. The energy in the room felt dead. No community spirit, no neighborly warmth, just fear wrapped in Robert's rules of order. Then Trish got to new business. Her eyes found mine across the room, held my gaze for 3 long seconds, a predator identifying prey. "We have a compliance issue to address," Trish announced. "A new resident has erected an unapproved structure in violation of Covenant Section 8.4. She pulled up photos on the projector screen. My house, my flagpole, my flag. "The flag itself is not the issue," Trish continued. "We're all patriots. We all honor our service members. But community standards exist for everyone, no exceptions." Murmurs in the audience, some nodding, some looking uncomfortable. "Mrs. Mitchell," Trish said, looking directly at me. "Would you like to address the board?" I stood, walked to the front, calm, professional, the same way I'd approached hundreds of witnesses and suspects. I handed packets to each board member, placed one in front of Trish. "The Covenant Section 8.4, I began, prohibits structures over 15 feet without approval, but it specifically exempts flagpoles. Page 17, paragraph 3, subsection B." Trish opened the packet. Her face didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten. "Additionally," I continued, "Arizona Senate Bill 1031 protects the right of all homeowners to display the American flag regardless of HOA restrictions. State law supersedes covenant rules." I've included the full text. I let that sit for a moment, watching the board members read, watching Trish's control start to slip. Finally, I said, "The previous owners of my property had this exact flagpole. They received a variance from this board 6 years ago. I've included their testimony confirming that." The room was silent. Every eye on Trish, waiting for her response. She smiled, cold and sharp. "The previous owners," she said carefully, "followed proper procedures, submitted applications, paid processing fees." "I submitted my application 6 days ago," I said. "Certified mail. I have the receipt." That stopped her. She hadn't expected that. "The covenant gives you 30 days to respond to variance requests," I continued. "It's been 6 days. Would you like to deny it now? On record in front of everyone, while it's still under review? Trish's mask cracked, just for a second, long enough for everyone to see the rage underneath. We need to take this into executive session, she said quickly. Actually, I replied. Arizona law requires all board business to be conducted in open session unless specifically exempted. Personnel matters and legal consultations are exempt. This is neither. Any decision on my variance must be made here, now, publicly. I'd backed her into a corner. She could approve the variance and lose face, or deny it and expose herself to legal action. Either way, she lost control. Lost. A voice from the audience spoke up. Ben Rodriguez. I move we approve Mrs. Mitchell's variance, he said. She's met all requirements. The flag honors her late husband, who died serving this country as an FBI agent. The mention of FBI made several board members look up. Trish's eyes narrowed. Second, another voice called. I turned. Helen Park standing. Trish looked at Helen like she'd been betrayed, like a queen watching a subject rebel. We'll vote, Trish said tightly. All in favor of approving the variance. Ben's hand went up. Helen's. 3 residents in the audience. That was all. Against, Trish said. The 4 board members raised their hands in unison. Trish's hand last. Motion fails, Trish declared. Variance denied. On what grounds? I asked. I've met every legal requirement. On the grounds that this board has determined the structure violates aesthetic standards, Trish said. That's our final decision. I let the silence stretch. Let everyone feel the weight of what just happened. Then I spoke quietly, clearly. I'll be keeping the flag, I said. See you in court if necessary. The room erupted. Some people shouting, some applauding, Trish hammering the gavel demanding order. Mrs. Mitchell, Trish said, her voice shaking with barely controlled fury. You are in violation of your covenant. Fines will continue to accrue. If you refuse to comply, we will place a lien on your property. We will foreclose if necessary. This board has authority, and we will use it. I looked directly at her. Let her see that I wasn't afraid. Let her see that I'd faced down cartel bosses and terrorism financiers and corrupt politicians. Let her see that a small-town tyrant with a gavel didn't scare me. You do what you need to do, I said. So will I. I walked out, calm, steady, but my heart pounded, because I'd just declared war, and wars had casualties. In the parking lot, Helen Park caught up to me. That took courage, she said. Or stupidity, I replied. Maybe both, Helen said. Can we talk? Not here, somewhere private. We met at a coffee shop 20 minutes away. Helen chose the location, made sure we weren't followed. She had the careful paranoia of someone who'd learned to be afraid. Over coffee, Helen told me her story. Widowed 10 years ago. Son killed in Afghanistan 9 years ago. Stayed in Saguaro Hills because it was the last place her son visited before deployment. Couldn't leave his memory. Trish had been HOA president for 8 years. First 2 years, things were normal. Community events, reasonable enforcement. Then something changed. Trish became controlling, demanding, fines for everything, harassment of anyone who questioned her. Helen had been treasurer. Noticed discrepancies in the financial reports, expenses that didn't match invoices, vendors she couldn't verify. When she asked Trish about it, the harassment started. Citations for everything, Helen said. My grass was too long, my mailbox was faded, my house needed repainting. Every single day something new. I ended up paying $15,000 in fines over 6 months just to make it stop. Why didn't you fight? I asked. She showed me, pulled out her phone, photos of a man, mid-30s, handsome, in an army uniform. That's David, she said. My son. When I questioned Trish, she started posting on the community Facebook page, suggesting that maybe David's death wasn't in combat. Maybe it was suicide. Maybe I was lying about my Gold Star status to gain sympathy. Her voice broke. I couldn't fight her, Helen continued. I couldn't defend myself without defending him. And defending him meant sharing private details about his death, about his service, about things a mother shouldn't have to prove. So I paid. I voted for her. I stayed quiet. And I've hated myself every single day since. She pulled out a folder, handed it to me. These are copies of the financial records I saved, Helen said, before she forced me to resign as treasurer. I think she's stealing. I think she's been stealing for years, but I can't prove it. And I can't fight her alone. I opened the folder. Scanned the documents, saw the same patterns I'd seen in hundreds of fraud cases: inflated invoices, phantom vendors, cash payments with no documentation. Classic embezzlement. Helen, I said carefully, I'm not just a homeowner, I'm an active FBI agent. Financial Crimes Division. Her eyes went wide. I can't investigate this officially, I continued. Not yet, not without jurisdiction. But I can look. I can build a file. And if there's enough evidence, I can bring it to the right people. Tears started down Helen's face. You have to be careful, she said. She'll come after Emma. That's what she does. She finds what you love and threatens it. Let her try, I said. Helen grabbed my hand. I've watched 3 families destroyed, Helen said. Good people, strong people. She broke them, made them leave, made them choose between their homes and their dignity. One woman tried to kill herself. Single mother. Trish had her investigated by CPS, made up allegations. The woman lost custody of her kids. What happened to her? I asked. Helen's face twisted. She left, moved out of state. Her ex-husband has the kids now. She sends them letters, but he won't let her see them. Trish destroyed her completely. We sat in silence. I thought about Emma, about the promises I'd made, about the risk I was taking. Then I thought about Tom, about what he'd say if he was here, about the oath we both took, to protect and serve, to stand between the innocent and those who'd harm them. I'm not leaving, I told Helen, and I'm not paying illegal fines, and I'm going to find out what Trish Holloway has done, all of it. Helen nodded slowly. Then we do this together, she said, because I'm tired of being afraid. We shook hands. 2 widows, 2 mothers who'd lost children, 2 women who'd learned that sometimes courage means standing up even when you're terrified. I drove home thinking about the board meeting, about Trish's face when she realized I wasn't backing down, about the anger in her eyes, about Helen's warnings. The house was dark except for the porch light. Ben's car still in my driveway. I found him and Emma in the living room. Emma asleep on the couch. Ben reading quietly in the chair beside her. How'd it go? Ben whispered. I made an enemy, I said. Ben nodded like he'd expected that. Emma asked about you every 5 minutes, he said. Asked if you were safe, if you were coming back. Kid's been through a lot. I looked at Emma sleeping. So small, so fragile, carrying so much loss. Ben stood to leave. At the door he paused. My wife died 4 years ago, he said. Cancer. Fought it for 3 years. I watched her suffer, watched her fade. Couldn't protect her from it, couldn't fix it. That feeling of helplessness, it never really goes away. He looked back at Emma. But you can protect that little girl, he continued. From Trish, from the HOA, from people who think power gives them the right to hurt others. You can do what I couldn't, save someone. He left before I could respond. I carried Emma to her bed, tucked her in, sat watching her sleep. My phone buzzed. Email from an unknown address. You made a mistake tonight. Trish doesn't lose. Ask around. Find out what happens to people who challenge her. You have 1 week to remove that flag and pay your fines. After that, we'll see how much you love your granddaughter. I stared at that email for a long time. The threat clear, explicit. Emma's safety on the line. I should have been afraid. Should have considered backing down. Should have thought about moving again, starting over somewhere else. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Purpose, clarity, the sense that I was exactly where I needed to be. I forwarded the email to my FBI account, started a case file, took screenshots, began documenting everything. Then I went outside, stood under the flagpole, looked up at the stars and the flag moving against them. Tom, I whispered, Emma needs stability. She needs to learn to stand up for right. She needs to see that bullies don't win. Help me do this right. The flag snapped in the wind, sharp, clear, like an answer. I went to bed. Tomorrow I'd call the county clerk. Request full HOA financial records, my right as a homeowner. Tomorrow I'd contact a real estate attorney. Understand my legal options. Tomorrow I'd reach out to the other families Helen mentioned. Build a network. Gather evidence. Tomorrow I'd show Trish Holloway what happens when you threaten an FBI agent's family. But tonight, I slept, deep and dreamless. The sleep of someone who'd made a decision and wouldn't second-guess it. The next morning, I woke to Emma shaking my shoulder. Gentle but insistent, the way she'd learned to wake me after years of living with someone who might be dreaming about crime scenes. "Grandma," she said urgently, "come look." I followed her to this front door. Someone had left an envelope. No postage, hand-delivered, tucked into the doorframe so it wouldn't blow away in the desert wind. The envelope was expensive, heavy stock, cream-colored, the kind you use for wedding invitations or formal announcements. An interesting choice for a threat. Inside, a single sheet of paper, typed message, professional font, centered text. Final notice. Vacate property within 30 days or face forcible removal. Failure to comply will result in immediate action. The board has spoken. There will be consequences. Below the message, a symbol, not an HOA logo. Something else. A mark I didn't recognize. Circular. Almost like a seal or stamp. Official looking but wrong somehow. Too ornate for an HOA. Too formal for a homeowners association. Emma looked up at me with those eyes that had seen too much loss, too much change, too much instability. "What does it mean?" she asked. Her voice steady, not crying, not panicking. 9 years old, and she'd learned to meet bad news with composure. That broke my heart more than tears would have. Children shouldn't be that good at accepting threats. I knelt down to her level, looked her straight in the eye, needed her to see my face, needed her to understand this moment mattered. "It means someone is trying to scare us," I said. "Are you scared?" Emma thought about it, really thought. I could see her processing, weighing, considering whether honesty was safe. "A little," she admitted. "Are you?" I nodded. Wouldn't lie to her about that. "A little," I said. "But you know what I learned from your grandfather?" Emma shook her head. "Being brave doesn't mean not being scared," I told her. "It means doing the right thing even when you are scared. Your grandpa was scared lots of times. When he went to work knowing dangerous people were out there. When he had to make hard choices. When he stood up to people more powerful than him. But he did it anyway because that's what protectors do. And keeping that flag flying is the right thing." Emma looked out at the flagpole, the flag catching morning light, red and white stripes moving in the breeze, stars gleaming against blue fabric, the POWMIA flag beneath it, black and white. "Never forget." "Then we keep it," she said. Simple, certain, the way children state fundamental truths. "Then we keep it," I agreed. We raised that flag together that morning, our new ritual. Emma's small hands on the rope next to mine, pulling it up, watching it climb, watching it reach the top and spread against the sky. The flag snapped in the wind. That sound, sharp and clean, like a declaration. And I made a silent promise, to Tom, to Jessica, to my mother, to every person I'd ever sworn to protect, to every victim whose case I'd worked, to every family I'd helped get justice, to the badge I'd carried for 28 years. Trish Holloway wanted a war. She'd get one, but she'd chosen the wrong family to threaten. She'd picked the wrong grandmother to intimidate. She'd forgotten that some people don't back down. Some people spent their whole lives standing up to bullies. Some people took an oath and meant it. She'd forgotten that the woman flying that flag was FBI, and she was about to learn what that meant. My late husband used to say that criminals always escalate when they're cornered. I just didn't expect to prove him right in a Suburban Homeowners Association. The certified letter arrived on Tuesday. Law offices of Bradford and Associates. Thick envelope, embossed letterhead, the kind of presentation designed to intimidate. I opened it standing at my kitchen counter while Emma ate her cereal. She watched me read, learning to gauge threats by watching my face. 9 years old, and she could already tell the difference between routine mail and danger. The letter demanded I appear at the law office within 72 hours to respond to HOA legal action. Failure to comply would result in immediate filing of injunctions seeking flag removal and $12,000 in accumulated fines. The math didn't work. $500 base fine plus $100 per day for 11 days equaled $1,800. Where did $12,000 come from? Phantom charges. Invented fees. The first sign of a fraudulent case. I called the number on the letterhead. Receptionist put me through to Attorney Bradford. Young voice. Uncertain. Not the predatory confidence you hear from lawyers who believe in their cases. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said. "Thank you for calling. I represent Pinewood Heights HOA in the matter of covenant violations regarding your property. I'd like to see your evidence," I said. "Specifically, the section of the covenant that supports your claims." Silence, paper rustling, then a longer silence. I have the board's directive, Bradford said carefully. Section 8.4 regarding unauthorized structures. I have the covenant right here, I replied. Page 17, paragraph 3, subsection B, specifically exempts flagpoles from height restrictions. I also have Arizona Senate Bill 1031, which protects flag display regardless of HOA rules. State law supersedes covenant provisions. You're aware of this, correct? More silence. I could hear him breathing. Could picture him realizing he'd been handed a losing case. Mrs. Holloway didn't mention. He started, then stopped. What didn't Mrs. Holloway mention? I asked. The exemption, he admitted. She provided selected excerpts from the covenant, said your flag violated community standards, showed me photos of the violation, provided board meeting minutes supporting the action. I assumed the legal basis was sound. Assumed, the word every lawyer learns never to use. I felt almost sorry for him. Almost. I'm an attorney myself, I said. Not true, but close enough. Federal law enforcement for 28 years. I know how to read contracts, I know how to spot fraudulent claims, and I know when someone is being used. What do you mean used? Bradford asked, voice tight now, defensive. Mrs. Holloway hired you to file an action she knew had no legal merit, I explained. She provided you incomplete information, set you up to be the face of her harassment campaign, while she maintained plausible deniability. When this fails, and it will fail, your professional reputation takes the hit, not hers. I let that sit. Gave him time to process, to understand he'd been played. I'm withdrawing from this case, Bradford said suddenly. Effective immediately. Smart choice, I said. For what it's worth, you should report Mrs. Holloway to the state bar. Filing frivolous legal actions. Misrepresenting facts to counsel. Those are serious ethical violations. I need to make a call, Bradford said. Before you do, I told him. Check who owns the HOA management company, the one billing $8,500 a month for services. I think you'll find that interesting. He hung up. I heard the click and imagined him already pulling corporate records. Young lawyer, idealistic enough to care about being lied to, ambitious enough to recognize when he'd been set up to fail. He'd dig. He'd find Trish's name on the incorporation documents. He'd realize the scope of what he'd stumbled into. Emma had stopped eating, watched me with those careful eyes. Was that about the flag? She asked. That was about someone learning not to trust bad people, I said. Did you win? Not yet, I told her, but we're getting closer. I spent that afternoon at my home office reviewing documents Helen Park had provided. Financial statements going back 5 years. Bank records, invoices, payment authorizations. I spread everything across my desk in chronological order, created timelines, cross-referenced transactions, built spreadsheets tracking cash flow. The work was familiar, comfortable, like putting on an old jacket that still fit perfectly. I'd spent most of my FBI career following money trails, 28 years interviewing embezzlers and fraudsters and Ponzi scheme operators. 28 years learning that white-collar criminals all made the same fundamental mistakes. They thought complexity equaled invisibility. Thought if they created enough layers, enough shell companies, enough accounting smoke and mirrors, nobody would see the truth underneath. They were always wrong. Money leaves traces. Always. Electronic transfers leave digital fingerprints. Cash withdrawals leave paper trails. Fake invoices contradict real work. The numbers never lie if you know the right questions to ask. I started with the landscaping contract. Desert Bloom Services, monthly billing of $15,000. The invoices listed services performed: mowing, trimming, fertilization, seasonal plantings, all standard landscaping tasks. But the amounts were wrong. I'd maintained my own yard for 30 years, knew what commercial landscaping cost, knew the going rates. I called 3 companies in Scottsdale, introduced myself as a potential HOA president researching vendors, asked for quotes on maintaining a community the size of Saguaro Hills, 287 homes, 15 acres of common area, standard desert landscaping requiring minimal water and maintenance. The quotes came back consistent, $7,000 to $8,000 per month, maybe $9,000 if we wanted premium service and exotic plantings. Nobody quoted above $10,000. Desert Bloom was billing $15,000, nearly double the market rate, for a community that had basic landscaping and minimal common areas. I pulled Desert Bloom's business registration from the Arizona Corporation Commission website. Public records. Anyone could access them. The company had been incorporated 3 years ago. Principal officer listed as Patricia M. Holloway. Registered agent also Patricia M. Holloway. Business address matching Trish's home address. She'd created a fake vendor, hired herself, paid herself with HOA money. Classic self-dealing. But that was just one contract. I dug deeper. The HOA collected approximately $400,000 annually in dues, 287 homes at $1,200 per year, plus special assessments. The money should have gone to landscaping, common area maintenance, insurance, legal fees, management, standard HOA expenses. Instead, I found discrepancies everywhere. Landscaping contract with Desert Bloom Services, monthly billing of $15,000. I called 3 commercial landscaping companies in the area. Asked for quotes on maintaining a community the size of Saguaro Hills. Highest estimate was $8,000 per month. I pulled Desert Bloom's business registration. Incorporated 3 years ago. Principal officer listed as Patricia Holloway. Security services from Pinnacle Protection Group. Monthly billing of $6,000. I ran the company name through FBI databases. No active security company by that name held licensing in Arizona. The address on file was a UPS store mailbox. Corporation registered to P. Holloway Consulting, LLC. Legal fees to Bradford and Associates. Reasonable until 6 months ago. Then suddenly spiking to $12,000 per month for routine matters. I'd already heard from Bradford. He was withdrawing. How many other attorneys had Trish churned through? How many had figured out they were being used and walked away? The pattern was clear. Classic embezzlement scheme, create fake vendors, bill the HOA, pay yourself, funnel money through multiple entities to obscure the trail. I estimated Trish had stolen at least $340,000 over 5 years, possibly more if the records Helen provided were incomplete. I called Michelle Torres, my partner at the FBI Phoenix field office. We'd worked together for 8 years. She understood financial crimes, understood how to build prosecutable cases. I need a favor, I said when she answered. Personal or professional? Michelle asked. Both, I admitted. I think I've stumbled into an embezzlement case. HOA president stealing from residents. But I'm one of the victims, so I can't investigate officially. Send me what you have, Michelle said. I'll take a look. I forwarded Helen's documents, added my analysis. Included the corporate registration showing Trish's ownership of the fake vendors. Michelle called back an hour later. This is solid work, she said. But you're right. You can't touch it officially. Too much conflict of interest. You live there. You're involved in the dispute. Defense would shred your credibility. So what do? I asked. Document everything, Michelle replied. Keep building the file. When it's strong enough, I'll take it to SAC Rodriguez. We can open a preliminary inquiry. Maybe send an agent undercover as a potential buyer. Gather evidence that isn't tainted by your involvement. How long will that take? I said. Few weeks to build it right, Michelle answered. Maybe a month. Can you hold out that long? I thought about Emma, about the threats, about the envelope that morning promising consequences. I'll make it work, I told her. After the call, I sat staring at the financial records spread across my desk. Numbers and invoices and bank statements. Cold data hiding human suffering. I thought about Helen Park, about her $15,000 in fines, about her son's memory being weaponized against her, about 3 years of living in fear. I thought about the families who'd already left, the single mother who lost custody of her kids, the elderly couple driven out, the quiet parade of victims who'd chosen escape over fighting. Trish Holloway had been doing this for years, targeting vulnerable people, breaking them systematically, and nobody had stopped her because nobody had the resources or the knowledge or the courage to stand up. Until now. Emma's 9th birthday fell on Saturday, 2 weeks after the board meeting, 2 weeks of escalating citations arriving in my mailbox like clockwork, 2 weeks of anonymous threats slipped under my door in the night, 2 weeks of watching Trish's silver Lexus drive past our house multiple times per day, slow passes, deliberate, making sure we saw her, making sure we felt watched, making sure we understood she hadn't forgotten. But it was Emma's birthday. And Emma deserved normal, deserved cake and presents and friends and laughter, deserved to be 9 without the weight of adult problems crushing her, deserved one day where loss and fear and grief didn't define every moment. I invited 5 kids from her new school, girls she'd been eating lunch with, boys who included her in playground games, children who didn't know about her mother or her great-grandmother or the FBI or HOA wars. Children who just knew Emma as the quiet girl with the sad eyes who was really good at math. I set up games in the backyard, pin the tail on the donkey, musical chairs, a scavenger hunt I designed with clues hidden around the yard. Hung streamers in purple and silver because those were Emma's favorite colors this week. Next week they might be different. She was 9, allowed to change her mind, allowed to be inconsistent, allowed to be a child. I baked a cake shaped like a book because Emma loved reading. Chocolate cake with vanilla frosting, decorated with edible flowers and her name spelled out in careful letters. It wasn't professional. The edges were uneven. The frosting had air bubbles. But I'd made it with my hands, stayed up past midnight getting it right. And that mattered more than perfection. I checked the HOA covenant 3 times to make sure every detail complied. Party hours 2 to 6 p.m. as specified in Section 12.7. Music volume at conversational levels, no amplification. No outdoor lights since the party would end before dark. No vehicles blocking the street. No decorations extending beyond my property line. Everything by the book. Everything defensible. Everything documented with photos and timestamps. The kids arrived at 2. Emma's face lit up in a way I hadn't seen since before her mother died. Pure joy. Uncomplicated happiness. Her smile reached her eyes. Real laughter bubbled up from somewhere deep inside. For a few hours, she wasn't the girl who'd lost everyone. She was just Emma, 9 years old, surrounded by friends, eating too much sugar, playing too loud, being beautifully, gloriously normal. She introduced me to her friends with pride. This is my grandma. She works for the FBI. She's really smart. She can solve any mystery. The kids looked at me with new interest, asked questions about catching bad guys, about carrying a gun, about whether I'd ever been in a car chase. I answered carefully, made it sound exciting but not scary, heroic but not violent, the sanitized version safe for 9-year-olds. We played games. The kids shrieked and laughed and argued about rules and made up new rules and forgot the rules entirely. Emma ran and jumped and shouted, completely present, completely alive. I took photos with my phone, captured her joy, wanted to remember this, wanted her to remember this, the day she got to just be 9. At 4:30, I was in the kitchen cutting cake when I heard sirens. Close, getting closer. That particular wail that meant emergency response. Police or fire or ambulance. The sound that makes your stomach drop because it means something bad is happening to someone. I looked out the front window and saw 2 Scottsdale police cruisers pulling up to my house. Parking in front, lights flashing red and blue, no ambulance, no fire truck, just police. Just my house. My stomach dropped, every muscle in my body tensed, fight or flight response kicking in even though I knew this wasn't a real emergency. Emma appeared beside me at the window, face pale, eyes wide, all the joy from moments before draining out of her like someone pulled a plug. "Why are the police here?" she whispered, her voice small, scared. And I hated Trish Holloway in that moment with a purity of rage I hadn't felt since Tom died. Hated her for stealing Emma's happiness, for turning a child's birthday party into another moment of fear and uncertainty, for making a 9-year-old afraid of police officers who should represent safety and protection. "I don't know, baby," I said, my voice steady despite the fury burning in my chest. "Stay inside with your friends. I'll handle this." I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, put myself between the police and the children, between the adult world and the childhood Emma deserved. 2 officers approached the front door. I met them outside, smiled, calm, professional. Every interaction with law enforcement gets recorded these days. Body cameras running, dashboard cameras capturing everything. Whatever was about to happen would be documented. "Ma'am," the first officer said, "we received multiple calls about a disturbance at this address. Noise complaint, reports of a wild party, possible underage drinking. I kept my face neutral, pointed to the backyard where 6 9-year-olds were eating cake. My granddaughter's birthday party, I said, started at 2. Music at reasonable volume, ending at 6 per HOA quiet hours. No alcohol, just children having cake. The officers looked embarrassed. The second one shook his head. We've been getting a lot of calls from this neighborhood lately, he said. Same complainant, same pattern, reports that never match reality when we arrive. Let me guess, I said. Patricia Holloway. The officers exchanged glances. Couldn't confirm but didn't deny. We're sorry to disturb you, the first officer said. Obviously no violation here. We'll note that in our report. Before you go, I said. How many calls? How often? The second officer checked his phone, pulled up something. 7 calls in the past 2 weeks, he read. All from the same number. All reporting violations at this address. All unfounded when we responded. We've started documenting it as harassment. Can I get copies of those reports? I asked. He asked. You can request them through records, he confirmed. Public information. The officers left. I stood on my porch watching them drive away. Watched them stop 3 houses down to speak with someone. Saw Trish Holloway step out of her house. Saw her talking to the officers, gesturing, playing the concerned neighbor. The officers cut her off, got back in their cars, left her standing there. Trish looked directly at me, smiled, waved, like we were friends, like she hadn't just tried to ruin Emma's birthday party. I went back inside. The kids were quiet, subdued, the magic of the party broken by sirens and uniforms and adult drama they didn't understand. Emma stood in the middle of her friends, small and brave and trying not to cry. I knelt down, pulled her close. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, I said loudly enough for all the kids to hear. Someone called the police thinking there was a problem, but the police saw we're just having a nice party. Everything is okay. Let's finish celebrating. The party continued, but the energy had changed. Parents arrived early to pick up their kids, gave me sympathetic looks. One mother whispered that her HOA in another neighborhood had similar problems. Another said she'd heard about Trish Holloway. Everyone had heard about Trish Holloway. By 6 p.m., Emma and I were alone. Leftover cake on the counter, decorations hanging limply. The house too quiet. Emma sat on the couch holding the stuffed animal her best friend had given her. Not playing with it, just holding it. Why does she hate us? Emma asked. She doesn't hate us specifically, I said. She hates that we won't do what she says. Why can't we just do what she says? Emma asked. Then she'd leave us alone. I sat next to her, put my arm around her small shoulders. Because what she says is wrong, I explained. She wants us to take down Grandpa's flag, to stop honoring his memory, to show her we're more afraid of her than we are committed to doing right. If we give in to that, we teach ourselves that bullies win. That fear is stronger than courage. That's not a lesson I want you to learn. Emma leaned against me. I'm tired of being brave, she said. Her voice so small, so defeated. 9 years old and tired of fighting, tired of loss, tired of having to be strong. Me too, baby, I admitted, me too. We sat there in the quiet. 2 people who'd lost too much trying to hold on to what little we had left. My phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. Sorry about today, we need to talk. I have information. Coffee tomorrow, just you. I have a daughter Emma's age. I understand. Ryan Garrett. I stared at that message. Ryan Garrett. I'd heard the name. Remembered Helen mentioning him. Security contractor Trish hired for dirty work. Former cop. The muscle behind Trish's intimidation campaigns. Why would he want to talk to me? Why would he risk Trish's anger? What game was this? But he'd mentioned having a daughter, same age as Emma. And today, Emma's birthday had been ruined by false police reports, by harassment targeting a child. Maybe Ryan Garrett had a conscience. Maybe watching Trish target kids had finally pushed him too far. I texted back. 10 a.m. coffee shop on Scottsdale Road in Shea, public place. Come alone. He replied immediately. Understood, thank you. The next morning, I met Ryan Garrett at a coffee shop 20 minutes from Saguaro Hills. Far enough that neighborhood busybodies wouldn't see us. Public enough to be safe. Busy enough that our conversation would get lost in the ambient noise. He arrived exactly at 10, not 5 minutes early. Not 2 minutes late. Exactly at 10. Military precision. The kind of timing you learn in service and never quite shake. Early 40s. Fit, but not showy. The lean muscle of someone who works out for function, not appearance. military bearing underneath civilian clothes, jeans and a polo shirt but worn like a uniform, moved like someone trained in tactics, scanned the room before sitting, noted exits, counted civilians, assessed threats, positioned himself with his back to the wall where he could see the entire coffee shop. All the tells of law enforcement or military background, the hypervigilance that never quite turns off, the constant tactical assessment, the assumption that any environment might turn hostile. I recognized it because I carried the same habits. 28 years of FBI work leaves marks, changes how you see the world, makes you scan for threats even in coffee shops on Sunday mornings. "Thank you for meeting me," he said. His voice carried an accent. Subtle. Southwest maybe. New Mexico or West Texas. The kind of place where men still opened doors and said ma'am, and meant it. "You said you have a daughter," I replied. "Start there." Ryan pulled out his phone, showed me a photo. Little girl, maybe 8 or 9, brown hair and pigtails secured with purple scrunchies, gap-toothed smile that showed she'd recently lost both front teeth, school photo background with that artificial blue sky they always use. The girl wore a dinosaur t-shirt and looked directly at the camera with confidence. No shyness, no fear. A kid who felt safe enough to be herself. "Mia," he said. 8 years old, 3rd grade, lives with me full-time. Her mother left when she was 2. Postpartum depression turned into addiction. Pills first, then harder stuff. She couldn't be a mom anymore. Couldn't be anything anymore. Last I heard she was in California trying to get clean. Been 4 years since Mia saw her. His voice stayed steady, but I heard the pain underneath, the guilt, the grief, the complicated mess of loving someone who couldn't love you back, of watching someone destroy themselves and being powerless to stop it. "It's just us now," Ryan continued. "Me and Mia. I work security, private contracts, flexible hours so I can do school pickup and homework and soccer practice. Everything a single dad does when he's trying to be both parents." "What does this have to do with my granddaughter's birthday party?" I asked. Ryan put his phone away, looked at his coffee cup. Shame colored his face. Real shame. The kind you can't fake. The kind that comes from doing something that violates your own code. "I made the calls," he admitted. "All 7 of them. Every false police report filed against your address in the past 2 weeks came from me. Trish Holloway paid me to do it. Gave me a burner phone, told me when to call, told me what to say, said you were causing problems in the community, said you were harassing her, said police showing up at your house would pressure you to comply with HOA rules." He finally met my eyes, held my gaze even though it clearly cost him something. "I didn't know it was a kid's birthday party," he said. "Didn't know you had a granddaughter until I saw the police reports afterward. Officers noted in their incident summaries that they'd responded to a children's party. 6 9-year-olds eating cake." And I thought about Mia, about her birthday last year, about what I'd want someone to do if she was being targeted like this. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I can't do it anymore," Ryan said. "Can't keep being the kind of man who ruins a little girl's birthday for money. Can't keep looking in the mirror and seeing someone my daughter shouldn't respect. Can't keep being complicit in something I know is wrong." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Thick manila envelope. Heavy. Slid it across the table to me. "That's everything," he said. Text messages from Trish with detailed instructions on when to call police and what to report. Venmo payment records showing she paid me $18,000 over the past 3 months. Screenshots of her telling me to target specific families. Photos she sent me of people she wanted surveilled. Voicemails where she discusses her plans. All of it. Everything I have. I opened the envelope carefully, pulled out the contents. Dozens of pages, printed screenshots, transaction histories as text conversations with timestamps. This wasn't hastily assembled. This was methodical, organized. Someone with investigative training had compiled this evidence. Someone who understood how to build a prosecutable case. I scanned the text messages first. Trish's words damning in their clarity. "Target the Mitchell house. Call it in as domestic disturbance. Make sure police come with lights and sirens. I want the whole neighborhood to see." Another message dated 3 days ago. "Birthday party today. Ruin it. Make the grandmother look unstable in front of other parents. The voicemails were worse. Trish's voice dripping with venom, talking about breaking me, about making Emma afraid, about showing the community what happens when someone challenges her authority. She sounded pleased, excited, like she enjoyed causing pain. "You were a cop," I said. "Phoenix PD based on your tactical movement and the way you positioned yourself when you sat down. You know what this means. You're confessing to crimes. Filing false police reports is a Class 1 misdemeanor in Arizona. Harassment, possibly conspiracy depending on how the prosecutor wants to charge it. You could lose your PI license. Face jail time. And as a former cop, you know exactly how that would go for you inside." "I know," Ryan said, voice quiet but steady. "And I'm willing to face consequences for what I've done. But I want immunity for testimony. I'll tell you everything. Testify against Trish in court. Wear a wire if you need more evidence. Whatever it takes to stop her. I just need to know my daughter won't lose me, that she won't end up in the system because her dad made bad choices." I studied him, reading body language, micro expressions, verbal cues, all the interview skills I developed over 28 years of interrogating suspects and witnesses and informants. He was scared. Genuinely terrified of what he'd done and what might happen, but also calculating, smart enough to negotiate terms before confessing, smart enough to protect himself while claiming altruism, smart enough to bring leverage to this meeting. The fear was real, the regret was real, but so was the self-interest. People are complicated, rarely all good or all bad, usually somewhere in the messy middle trying to survive while doing minimal damage. "I'm FBI, I told him. "Financial Crimes Division, Phoenix Field Office. But I can't promise you anything. I'm a victim in this case, not an investigator. There are rules about that, procedures. I can pass this evidence to the right people. I can put in a good word. But I can't guarantee immunity or protection." His eyes widened. FBI. He clearly hadn't known, hadn't done his research beyond what Trish told him. Probably believed her story about me being just another difficult homeowner, just another target. He was realizing now how badly he'd miscalculated. "That's even better," he said after a moment. "You have contacts, resources. You can get this to people who'll actually do something. Trish has connections at the local level, judges, politicians, people who protect her. But federal? She can't buy her way out of federal charges." "What else do you know?" I asked. Ryan leaned forward, lowered his voice. "She's embezzling," he said, "hundreds of thousands. I've seen the books. She keeps a second set at her house. Real numbers versus what she reports to the HOA. I've been to her place fixing security cameras, saw the files in her home office. How much I press. "At least 300,000, Ryan estimated, maybe more. She's got a gambling problem. Vegas trips every other weekend, high roller tables." I drove her to the airport twice, saw the casino loyalty cards in her wallet. He pulled out his phone, showed me photos, Trish's home office, filing cabinets, ledgers visible on the desk. He'd been documenting, building his own insurance policy. "There's more," Ryan continued. "Judge Thornton, County Superior Court, he's involved. Trish's got him signing fake court orders. I delivered one last month. Eviction notice for a family that challenged her. Judge's signature on official letterhead. But when I checked the court database, no case existed. Judicial corruption, forgery, false documents. The case was growing beyond simple HOA harassment into serious federal crimes. "I need to make a call," I said. I called Michelle Torres, explained the situation, asked her to join us. She arrived 30 minutes later, sat down, read through Ryan's evidence, asked pointed questions, evaluated his credibility. "We can work with this," Michelle finally said to me, "but you need to step back. This is FBI business now. You're a witness, not an investigator." "I know," I said. To Ryan, Michelle was all business. "You'll cooperate fully," she told him. "Wear a wire if needed. Testify before grand jury. Federal prosecution in exchange for immunity on state charges. That's the deal." "I'll do it," Ryan agreed, "whatever it takes." Michelle left with the evidence envelope, told me she'd brief SAC Rodriguez that afternoon. Promised to keep me updated, but made clear I was off the case officially. Before Ryan left, I stopped him. "Why now?" I asked. "You've been doing this for months. Why suddenly grow a conscience?" He looked out the coffee shop window, watched people walking past, normal people living normal lives. Yesterday was Mia's birthday too, he said quietly. Same day as your granddaughter. I threw her a party at the park. And while she was opening presents, I got a text from Trish, telling me to call in more police reports on your party, telling me to make sure your granddaughter's day was ruined. He turned back to me. I looked at my daughter's face, Ryan continued. Thought about some stranger targeting her to get to me. Thought about what kind of man I want to be for her. And I couldn't do it anymore. He stood to leave. I'm sorry, he said, for the calls, for scaring your granddaughter, for all of it. I hope someday Emma knows that at least one bad guy tried to do better. After he left, I sat alone finishing my coffee, thinking about moral calculus, about redemption, about whether intentions mattered when harm had been done. Ryan Garrett had terrorized my family for money, had filed false reports, had been complicit in Trish's campaign. But he'd also stopped, made the hard choice, turned over evidence that could bring her down. Was that enough? Did stopping make up for starting? Did one good choice erase months of bad ones? I didn't know. But I knew Emma deserved to see that people could change, that admitting mistakes took courage, that sometimes bad people made better choices. The next week passed in careful tension. I installed professional-grade security cameras around my property, upgraded the system to upload continuously to cloud storage, made sure every angle was covered, every approach monitored. If Trish escalated, I wanted documentation. Michelle called twice with updates. FBI had opened a preliminary investigation. Financial forensics team reviewing the evidence. Undercover agent scheduled to tour Saguaro Hills as potential buyer. Everything moving forward but slowly, methodically, building a case that would hold up in court. Meanwhile, citations kept coming. Grass too long, mailbox crooked, car parked 6 inches too far from curb. Each one a $100 fine, each one documented, each one adding to the pile of evidence showing systematic harassment. On Thursday, I received a call from Scottsdale Police Department. Detective Morrison wanted to meet, said it was about a complaint filed against me. I agreed to come to the station. Detective Morrison was professional, late 40s, tired eyes, the look of someone who'd seen too much and stopped being surprised by human behavior. Mrs. Mitchell, he said. Patricia Holloway filed a report claiming you threatened to kill her. Says it happened Tuesday evening at approximately 7 p.m. Says you approached her at her home and made explicit death threats. I pulled out my phone, showed him my calendar. Tuesday at 7 p.m. I was at Emma's school, I said. Parent-teacher conference. Scheduled 3 weeks ago, 45 minutes. School security cameras will confirm. Morrison nodded, made notes. Mrs. Holloway also claims you've been harassing her, he continued, following her, making threatening phone calls, creating a hostile environment. I've had no contact with Mrs. Holloway outside of one HOA board meeting, I replied, but I have documentation of her harassment of me, false police reports, evidence she hired someone to target my family. I filed a report last week. Report number should be in your system. Morrison checked his computer. I see it, he confirmed. Officer notes indicate pattern of harassment against you. Multiple unfounded calls to your residence. Detective, I said. I'm an FBI agent, Financial Crimes Division, currently on personal leave dealing with family matters. But I'm still active duty. I don't make death threats. I build cases. And I'm building one against Mrs. Holloway for embezzlement and harassment. Morrison's expression shifted. Recognition, respect, the professional courtesy between law enforcement. She's making this up, he said. Not a question, a statement. She's establishing a paper trail, I explained, creating a narrative that I'm unstable, dangerous. So when I expose her crimes, she can claim I've been harassing her out of vendetta. It's a preemptive defense strategy. Smart, Morrison admitted. Evil but smart. He closed his notebook. This investigation is closed, he said. Obviously false report. I'll be noting that in the file. And Mrs. Mitchell? If she keeps filing false reports, we'll be charging her with misuse of emergency services. I thanked him and left. Drove home thinking about escalation, about how Trish was getting desperate, about how desperate people made mistakes. Friday afternoon, a social worker appeared at my door. Child Protective Services. Professional, sympathetic but obligated. We received a report, she said. Concerns about your granddaughter's welfare. Allegations of neglect. Unstable home environment. We're required to investigate. Emma was at school. Thank God Emma was at school. I invited the social worker inside, stayed calm, professional, cooperative, showed her Emma's room, clean, safe, age-appropriate, photo albums documenting our life together, school records showing Emma's good grades, medical records showing regular checkups and dental care. The social worker interviewed me for an hour, asked about Emma's history, about the losses she'd experienced, about my ability to care for her while working full-time, about support systems and resources. I answered everything honestly, explained Emma's trauma, my commitment, the therapy we both attended, the stable home I was trying to provide. Before she left, the social worker spoke quietly. "This is the third call we've received about Pinewood Heights this year," she said. "Always the same pattern. Anonymous reports against families who've had conflicts with the HOA. Always unfounded when we investigate. We're documenting it. Can you tell me who filed the report?" I asked. "Anonymous," she confirmed, "but the details suggest someone with intimate knowledge of your family situation. Someone local." "Trish," I said. The social worker couldn't confirm, but her expression told me I was right. "Your granddaughter is clearly well cared for," she said. "I'll close this case as unfounded. But, Mrs. Mitchell, document everything because if someone is targeting you through your child, that's serious, that's criminal." After she left, I sat on my couch shaking. Not from fear, from rage. Trish had gone after Emma directly, had tried to use the system to tear my family apart, had weaponized child protection services against a child who'd already lost everyone. That crossed a line, every line, all the lines. I called Michelle. "She went after Emma," I said. "CPS investigation, false report." My voice shook. I couldn't control it. "Sarah," Michelle said carefully, "you need to stay calm. Don't do anything rash. We're building a case. It's almost ready." "How long?" I demanded. "Week, maybe 2. We need airtight evidence before we move." "Emma comes home in 2 hours," I said. "She'll ask why a social worker was here. She'll be scared. She'll think someone's trying to take her away from me. Again." Silence on the line. Michelle understood. She had kids too. "What do you need?" Michelle asked. "I need Trish Holloway to make a major move," I said. "Need her to expose herself completely. Need undeniable evidence captured on camera with witnesses." "That's dangerous," Michelle warned. "Living in fear is dangerous," I replied. "Waiting for the next attack is dangerous. I'm done playing defense. Time to make her commit." "What are you planning?" Michelle asked. "I'm going to give her what she wants," I said. "Provoke her. Make her think she's winning. Then let her hang herself." Michelle was quiet for a long moment. "Be careful," she finally said. "And Sarah, whatever happens, protect Emma first. Case second. Always, I promised." That night, Emma came home from school and found me in the kitchen making dinner. She set down her backpack, looked around. "Did someone come here today?" she asked. "How did you know?" I said. "The house smells different," she explained, "like someone's perfume. 9 years old, and she'd learned to detect intrusions, to sense when strangers had been in her space. Skills no child should need." I knelt down to her level. "A lady from social services came," I told her. "Someone made a phone call saying they were worried about you. The lady came to check. She saw our house, talked to me, and she said everything is perfect. You're safe, happy, well cared for." She closed the case. Emma's face crumpled. "Someone tried to take me away," she whispered. "Someone tried," I confirmed. "They failed, and they're not going to succeed. I promise you, Emma. Nobody is taking you anywhere. We're staying right here, together." She threw her arms around my neck, held on tight. I felt her small body shaking. "I'm scared, Grandma," she said into my shoulder. "I know, baby," I whispered back. "But here's what I need you to understand. Bad people do bad things. They try to scare good people into giving up. But we're not giving up. We're going to fight. And we're going to win. Because that's what protectors do." Emma pulled back, looked at me with those old eyes and that young face. "You promise?" she asked. "I promise," I said. And I meant it, whatever it took. However far I had to go. Trish Holloway had just made the fight personal. She'd threatened my child. And threatening my child was the last mistake she'd ever make. The day Trish Holloway tried to have me arrested, I was drinking coffee on my porch watching Emma draw chalk hearts on our driveway. She made 2 mistakes that morning. She came for me in front of my granddaughter, and she thought fake authority could beat real badges. The sun hadn't cleared the mountains yet. That perfect desert hour when the temperature sits in the low 70s before climbing toward triple digits. The hour when the sky transitions from deep purple to pink to that crystalline blue that only exists in Arizona. The hour when the desert holds its breath before the heat descends. Emma wore her pajamas, purple cotton with stars, hair still messy from sleep. She'd found the sidewalk chalk I'd bought her last week and decided our driveway needed decorating. Pink hearts, yellow flowers, her name spelled out in rainbow letters, a sun with exaggerated rays, a house with a flagpole, normal 9-year-old things, beautiful ordinary childhood moments that felt precious because I knew they were about to be interrupted. I watched her from his porch, coffee in hand, flag already raised, the morning ritual we'd established. Every day started with the flag. Every day we reminded ourselves what we were fighting for. Tom's memory, Jessica's legacy, Emma's right to grow up safe and unafraid, the right to live without fear, the right to stand your ground when someone tries to take what's yours. But my attention wasn't fully on Emma. Couldn't be. Not anymore. Not after 2 weeks of escalating threats. Not after Trish had proven she'd weaponize anything to win. Not after the CPS visit and the police reports and the anonymous notes promising consequences. I scanned the street with the systematic attention Tom had taught me, left to right, near to far, looking for anomalies, things that didn't belong, patterns that had changed. The Johnsons' lawn furniture still in the same position. Rodriguez's truck in his driveway where it always parked. The elderly Wheeler's porch light still on because they forgot to turn it off last night like they did every night. Everything normal. Everything as it should be. Which meant nothing. Threats don't announce themselves with sirens and flashing lights. Threats look normal until the moment they stop being normal and become violence. I cataloged vehicles, the Santos's minivan, the Park's sedan, Ben Rodriguez's truck, a blue Honda I didn't recognize but had seen parked there for 3 days. Probably belongs to someone visiting the Changs. Normal, safe, known quantities. The hypervigilance I'd learned to manage after Tom died had come roaring back. Every car was a potential threat. Every stranger was suspect. Every quiet moment felt like the calm before violence. I hated it. Hated living this way. Hated that Emma was growing up watching me scan for danger. Hated that a 9-year-old knew to ask why men were watching us. But I couldn't turn it off. Wouldn't turn it off. Because the one time you relax is the one time they strike. Tom had learned that the hard way. A routine interview turned shooting. A suspect he'd cleared as safe pulling a weapon. Tom's mistake was trusting, assuming, letting his guard down. I wouldn't make the same mistake. The black SUV appeared at 6:45, exactly on schedule. Punctual, professional, military precision in civilian operation. It came from the east. Drove slowly. Not trying to be subtle, but not being obvious either. The driver looking for something, looking for an address, looking for a target. It found my house, parked 3 houses down, driver side facing my house, clear line of sight, professional surveillance positioning, not a neighbor. Neighbors don't park facing other people's houses. Neighbors pull into driveways, park in front of their own properties. This was someone watching, someone waiting, someone with a purpose. The vehicle was new, this year's model, expensive. Tinted windows dark enough to make me think about Arizona's window tint laws and whether this exceeded legal limits. License plate visible but too far to read clearly without binoculars. Colorado registration based on the plate colors. Rental, maybe. Or registered out of state deliberately to make tracking harder. I took a photo with my phone, zoomed in on the license plate, enhanced the image, got a clear shot, sent it to Michelle Torres with a simple text. "They're here." She replied immediately. "Team is 10 minutes out. Hold position. Do not engage. Let them commit." 10 minutes. 600 seconds. A lot could happen in 600 seconds. A knife fight lasts 10 seconds. A gunfight 3 seconds. A grab and run 5 seconds. 10 minutes was an eternity in tactical time. But I'd asked for this. Beg Michelle to let Trish make her move. Let her commit fully. Get everything on camera with witnesses. Build an airtight case instead of arresting her on what we had. And watching a good lawyer chip away at the evidence. Make sure the charges stick. Make sure she goes to prison. Make sure she can never hurt anyone again. So I waited, drank my coffee, watched Emma draw hearts on the driveway, and kept one eye on that black SUV, watched for movement, watched for additional vehicles, watched for the moment when watching became action. At 7:15, a white van appeared, coming from the west this time, pincer movement, multiple angles, tactical coordination. This wasn't amateur hour. Whoever Trish hired knew what they were doing. The van was unmarked, commercial style, the kind contractors use, white paint clean but not new, a few dings and scratches that made it look legitimate. Working vehicle, nothing flashy, nothing memorable, perfect for blending in. The van pulled up next to the SUV, parked parallel, driver and passenger visible through the windshield, both male, both young, 30s maybe, both wearing matching uniforms, black pants, black polo shirts with some kind of patch on the chest. Too far away to read the details but designed to look official, designed to look like legitimate security, the kind of uniform that makes people comply because it looks like authority. Two men got out, stood by their vehicles, not hiding, not trying to be subtle, wanting to be seen, wanting me to know they were there, wanting to create pressure, create anxiety, make me afraid, make me second guess, make me think about complying before they even made demands. The men checked their phones, synchronized watches, looked at my house, pointed, discussed something. One of them pulled out what looked like a clipboard, papers, documentation, building the appearance of legitimacy, getting their story straight before approaching. They weren't trying to hide their surveillance, weren't being covert. This was psychological warfare. The same tactics Trish had been using for weeks. Make the target anxious, keep them off balance, wear them down until they break, until they make mistakes, until they give up and surrender. But I wasn't breaking. I was documenting. Every camera on my property was recording. 4 cameras total, front yard, backyard, driveway, street, all motion activated, all uploading to cloud storage in real time, all live feeding to FBI servers where Michelle and her team were watching, building the case minute by minute, frame by frame, creating evidence that couldn't be disputed or explained away. Emma noticed the men. Children notice everything adults wish they wouldn't notice. She stopped drawing, pink chalk still in her hand, looked up at me with questions in her eyes. Questions she was too smart to ask out loud because she already knew the answers wouldn't make her feel better. "Grandma," she said quietly, "those men are watching us." "I know, baby," I replied. "It's okay, they can't hurt us." "Why are they here?" she asked. I think someone sent them to scare us," I told her. "But we're not scared, are we?" Emma shook her head, trying to be brave, but I could see the fear underneath, could see her small hands gripping the chalk tighter, could see her body tensing, ready to run. "Emma," I said gently, "remember how we talked about Mrs. Park's house? About having sleepovers there?" Emma nodded. "I think today would be a good day for that," I continued. "Pack your overnight bag, bring your favorite books. I'll call Mrs. Park and make sure it's okay." "But what about you?" Emma asked. "I'll be fine," I promised. "I just need to handle some grown-up business. And I can do that better knowing you're somewhere safe having fun." Emma looked at the men in the street, then back at me, old beyond her years, understanding more than she should, reading the tension in my shoulders, the careful control in my voice, the way my eyes kept scanning. She'd learned to read danger by watching me, by surviving loss, by adapting to a world that kept teaching her nothing was permanent and everyone eventually left. "Okay," she said quietly, "but you have to promise to come get me, tonight. You have to promise you won't leave me there," her voice breaking on the last words, not from fear of the men in the street, from fear of being abandoned. Again, like her mother had abandoned her, like her great-grandmother had abandoned her. Not by choice, not deliberately, but dead is dead regardless of intention. And Emma had learned that promises from adults meant nothing against the reality of loss. I knelt down on the driveway, ignored the chalk dust on my knees, took Emma's hands in mine, made her look at me, made her see that I meant what I was about to say. "Emma," I said, "listen to me. Really listen. Your mother didn't want to leave you. The accident took her. Your great-grandmother didn't want to leave you. Cancer took her. They loved you. They would have stayed if they could. Do you believe that?" Emma nodded, tears starting. "I am choosing to send you to Mrs. Park's," I continued. Not because I want you gone, because I want you safe. And when this is over, when the bad people are dealt with, I am choosing to come get you. I will walk through fire to get to you. I will move heaven and earth. Nothing will stop me from keeping this promise. Do you understand? But what if something happens to you? Emma whispered. What if the bad people hurt you? Then Mrs. Park has instructions, I told her honestly. Numbers to call, people who will take care of you. But Emma, listen, I've been doing this job for 28 years, dealing with bad people. I'm very good at it. And these people trying to scare us? They're not even close to the worst I've faced. They're bullies, and bullies lose when someone stands up to them. You're going to win, Emma asked. Not a question, a plea. I'm going to win, I confirmed, because that's what protectors do. We win. We keep our families safe. And you are my family, the most important person in my world. I will not let anyone hurt you. I will not let anyone take you. And I will come for you tonight. Emma threw her arms around my neck, held on with that desperate strength children have when they're trying to believe something they're afraid isn't true. I held her back, breathed in the smell of her shampoo, felt her small body shaking, wished I could make all of this go away, wished I could give her a childhood free of fear and loss, wished a lot of things I couldn't deliver. But I could deliver safety. I could deliver justice. I could deliver the promise that not all adults leave, that some of us stay, that some of us fight, that some of us keep our word. I love you, baby, I whispered into her hair. More than anything, remember that. I love you too, Grandma, she whispered back. Please be careful. Always, I promised. She went inside to pack, took her time, carefully selecting books, the journal my mother had given her, the photo of Jessica, the stuffed rabbit from Tom, a change of clothes, her toothbrush, packing like she was preparing for something longer than an overnight stay, packing like someone who'd learned to be ready to move, to leave, to start over. I watched her through the window, this small person who'd survived more than most adults, who'd learned resilience the hard way, who understood loss in ways no child should, who was brave because she had to be, who was strong because she'd been broken and put herself back together too many times already. I would protect her, whatever it took, however far I had to go. Emma would not lose anyone else, would not watch another person she loved disappear. I would make sure of that. I called Helen Park, explained the situation in careful language, coded words that Helen understood. Emma needed to be away from the house for a few hours. Could Helen take her? Keep her safe? Keep her away from whatever was about to happen? Make sure she was somewhere the bad people couldn't reach her? Helen understood immediately. Didn't ask questions, didn't hesitate. Of course. Bring her over, I'll make pancakes, we'll watch movies, she'll be safe. I promise you, Sarah, nobody gets near her. Thank you, I said. And Helen, if anything happens to me, if something goes wrong, you have my attorney's number, you have my will, you know what to do. Nothing will happen to you, Helen said firmly. But yes, I know what to do. I'll protect her, like my own grandchild. I drove Emma to Helen's house myself. Wouldn't let her walk. Wouldn't risk even 3 blocks of exposure. Put her in my car. Checked the back seat before she got in. Old habit. FBI training. Always clear the vehicle before loading passengers. Lock the doors. Watch the mirrors the entire drive. 3 blocks felt like 3 miles. Every intersection a potential ambush point. Every parked car a potential threat. Every pedestrian a possible lookout. I was being paranoid. I knew I was being paranoid. But paranoia keeps you alive. Complacency gets you killed. Helen met us at the door, took Emma's overnight bag, smiled at Emma with genuine warmth. Not fake cheerfulness. Not pretending everything was fine. Just real human kindness. The kind that says, I see you're scared and that's okay, and I'm here. Emma, Helen said, I'm going to make the best pancakes you've ever had, with chocolate chips and whipped cream. And then we're going to watch that new animated movie you told me about, the one with the dragons. Does that sound good? Emma nodded, still holding my hand, not quite ready to let go. I knelt down one more time, one more hug, one more promise. Tonight, I said, I'll be here tonight. You promised, Emma whispered. I promised, I confirmed. She let go of my hand, walked inside with Helen, looked back once, wave, brave smile. Then the door closed. I stood on Helen's porch for a moment, listened, made sure I heard Emma's voice, heard her asking Helen about the pancakes, heard normal childhood questions, heard her starting to feel safe. Then I walked back to my car, got in, gripped the steering wheel hard enough to hurt, let myself feel the fear I'd been hiding from Emma, let myself acknowledge that I was terrified, that I was risking everything, that I might not be able to keep my promise. Then I pushed the fear down, locked it away, became Agent Mitchell instead of Grandma Sarah, became the person who'd spent 28 years facing down criminals, became the person who knew how to win. As I drove away from Helen's house, I saw it, the black SUV I'd noted earlier. Different one, this one newer, cleaner, following Helen's street 1 block over, parallel surveillance, watching where I'd gone, tracking Emma's location. They were following Emma, tracking her movements, planning something. My blood went cold, then hot, then cold again. Fury rising so fast and so hard I had to pull over, had to breathe, had to control the urge to ram that SUV, to drag the driver out, to make them understand what happens when you threaten a child. My child, my granddaughter, my family. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, called Michelle. "They're watching Emma," I said. Black SUV following the street parallel to Helen's. Colorado plates, following my route. They know where she is. "We see it," Michelle confirmed. "Unit 2 has eyes on them. 4 agents on Helen's block. 2 on the parallel street. 2 at the intersections. They won't get within 100 yards of that house." "I need to know she's safe," I said, voice breaking. "I need to know they can't reach her." "Sarah," Michelle said gently, "look up." I looked, saw an FBI vehicle parked at the end of Helen's street, saw another one at the intersection, saw agents positioned like they were guarding the president, saw a perimeter that would stop an army. "She's safe," Michelle repeated. "We have 6 agents dedicated to Emma's protection. Former HRT, best tactical operators in the Bureau. A mosquito couldn't get to her. I promise you, Emma is safe." I sat in my car, breathing, trying to believe, trying to trust. "Thank you," I finally said. "Go home," Michelle told me. "Let them make their move. We've got Emma. Now let's get Trish." I drove back to my house, hands shaking on the wheel. Not from fear, from rage, from the primitive protective instinct that makes mothers lift cars off children, makes grandmothers face down armed men, makes ordinary people do extraordinary things when someone threatens their family. Trish Holloway had made a critical miscalculation. She'd thought I cared more about my house than my granddaughter, thought property mattered more than family, thought she could leverage Emma to force my compliance. She was about to learn how wrong she was. I pulled into my driveway at 8:30. The black SUV and white van were still there. Now a third vehicle had joined them, silver sedan, expensive, the kind consultants and lawyers drive. A man in a suit stood beside it, 50s, overweight, clipboard in hand, trying to look official and important. I got out of my car, walked to my porch, sat down in the chair I'd positioned there. Coffee long since cold, but I held the mug anyway. Something to do with my hands, something normal to anchor me while the world went sideways. The man in the suit checked his watch. 9 o'clock. Right on schedule. He nodded to the security guards. They started walking toward my house. Confident, unhurried. Men who believed they had authority and power. Men who'd done this before and gotten away with it. Neighbors were emerging now. Doors opening, people coming out to watch. Mrs. Rodriguez across the street. The elderly couple 2 doors down. Diane Santos recording on her phone. Ben Rodriguez standing on his lawn with arms crossed, ready to intervene if needed. The community that Trish had terrorized for years was gathering. Witnesses, evidence, documentation. The suit reached my property line first, stopped, made a show of checking his clipboard, making sure I saw the official-looking documents, making sure the neighbors saw them too. "Ma'am," he called out, "I'm Derek Morrison, court-appointed executor. We have legal authorization to secure this property. You need to come speak with me." I didn't move, didn't respond, just looked at him. Let him wonder what I was thinking. Let him start to doubt. "Ma'am," Morrison repeated. Louder now, making sure the neighbors heard. "We have documentation, a legal order. You need to comply or we'll be forced to take action." I stood slowly, walked to the edge of my porch, close enough to speak without shouting, but far enough to maintain distance. Never let them into your space. Never give up the high ground. Tom's voice in my head. FBI training, common sense. Show me the documentation, I said calmly. Morrison walked forward, handed me several papers. Official looking, court seal at the top, judge's signature at the bottom, eviction order, 30 days expired, property to be seized, occupant to be removed, all very legal sounding, all completely fake. I scanned the documents, found the errors immediately. Wrong court, wrong judge. Marianne Cross doesn't hear eviction cases. She's federal court, not county. The seal was close but wrong. The case number didn't match the format. Procedural errors throughout. Professional looking but obviously fraudulent to anyone who knew what to look for. This is fake, I said clearly, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Ma'am, Morrison replied, his voice taking on an edge. That's a legal court order signed by a sitting judge. You need to vacate immediately. Judge Cross's name is spelled wrong, I pointed out. Crosse. There's an extra E. Also, her signature loops to the left. This one loops right. And the case number format is wrong for this jurisdiction. This is a forgery. Morrison's face went red. He hadn't expected me to know court procedures. Hadn't expected me to spot the mistakes. Ma'am, he blustered, you're making this harder than it needs to be. We have authority to use reasonable force. He gestured to the two security guards. They moved forward, one tall and lean, moving like military, professional. The other shorter but heavily built, aggressive energy, eager, looking forward to this. The tall one had something in his hand, zip tie restraints, the kind police use for mass arrests, plastic, strong, designed to be unbreakable without tools. I stayed on my porch, higher ground, tactical advantage, forcing them to come to me instead of being pulled to them. Who hired you? I asked Morrison. That's confidential, he snapped. Was it Patricia Holloway? I pressed. I'm not discussing my client, Morrison said. Because she's not your client, I replied. She's your co-conspirator. You know this eviction order is fake. You know you're committing fraud. The question is whether you understand the criminal liability you're facing. The tall security guard spoke up then. First words I'd heard from him. Voice familiar somehow. Ma'am, he said quietly. Please just cooperate. Make this easy. I looked at him directly. Really looked. Recognition clicked. I'd seen his photo. Mia's father, Ryan Garrett. He was here. Part of this. Despite everything he'd said about wanting out. Despite the evidence he'd provided. Despite his apparent conscience. He was still working for Trish. Still following orders. Still complicit. Unless I looked closer. Saw his eyes. Saw the fear there. Saw him trying to communicate something. Saw his hand move slightly. A gesture. Down. Toward his waist, where a wire would be. He was recording, still on our side, playing his role, gathering evidence, getting Trish and Morrison on tape committing multiple felonies. I gave him the slightest nod. Understanding, trust. Continue the performance. Sir, I said to Ryan, you're violating federal law. This property contains a federal easement. You have no jurisdiction here. The other guard, the aggressive one, laughed. Federal easement, he mocked. That's a new one. Lady, you're stalling. Time's up. He reached for my arm. Fast, violent, intending to grab and drag. I moved faster. 28 years of defensive tactics training. Stepped back, shifted weight. His hand closed on empty air. He stumbled forward, off balance, angry now. Don't touch me, I said clearly. For the cameras, for the witnesses, for the recording. I am not resisting. I am simply maintaining my personal space. Morrison pushed forward. You're resisting illegal eviction, he shouted. That's obstruction, assault on an officer. These aren't officers, I replied. They're private security with no legal authority. And you're trespassing on federal land. The aggressive guard came at me again, this time not reaching, pushing, trying to force me off the porch, trying to put hands on me so they could claim I assaulted them, trying to create the confrontation Trish wanted. I stood my ground, didn't push back, didn't strike, didn't give them anything that could be twisted into aggression. Just stood there, wood, immovable, a grandmother protecting her home. Ma'am, Ryan said again, please just step down, make this easier. He was looking past me now, down the street. I knew what he saw. FBI vehicles approaching, Michelle and her team, the cavalry arriving exactly on schedule. I smiled, small, controlled. Before I do anything, I said loudly, I want everyone here to understand something. I am Special Agent Sarah Mitchell, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Phoenix Field Office, Financial Crimes Division. I have been on active duty for 28 years. My credentials are current. My authority is permanent. And every single person attempting to remove me from this property is committing federal crimes. The street went silent. Morrison's face drained of color. The aggressive guard stopped mid-reach. Ryan stepped back with hands visible, showing he wasn't a threat. You're lying, Morrison said, voice shaking now. Call the Phoenix FBI office, I told him. Ask for SAC Rodriguez, he'll verify. This is a bluff, Morrison insisted, but he didn't sound convinced. The documents you showed me are forged, I continued. Court seal is wrong. Judge's signature is fake. Case number is fabricated. That's forgery. Fraud. Impersonation. Multiple federal felonies. I pointed to the aggressive guard. You assaulted a federal agent, I told him. That's 10 to 20 years in federal prison. To Ryan, you're filing a false eviction, I said. Conspiracy. Unless you're cooperating with federal authorities. Then you might have immunity. Ryan's expression didn't change, but I saw relief in his eyes. The confirmation he needed. His deal was still good. He was protected. Sirens now. Multiple vehicles. Coming fast. Not trying to be subtle. Lights flashing. Making sure everyone saw. 3 FBI SUVs turned onto my street. Black. Government plates. Stopping in formation. Blocking escape routes. Tactical positioning, my people, my team, my backup. Michelle Torres stepped out of the lead vehicle. 5 other agents emerging from the others. All wearing FBI jackets. All armed. All moving with purpose and authority. Morrison tried to run. Got 3 steps before an agent intercepted him. Hands on his shoulders. Professional. Controlled. No violence but absolute authority. FBI, Michelle announced loudly. Everyone stay where you are. The aggressive guard dropped to his knees immediately, hands behind his head, ex-military training kicking in, recognizing real authority when he saw it. Ryan stayed standing but hands visible, palms out, showing he wasn't a threat, showing he was cooperating. Michelle walked to me, nodded once. Agent Mitchell, she said formally, are you injured? I'm fine, I confirmed. Did these individuals assault you? Michelle asked. Attempted assault, I clarified. One of them tried to grab me. I maintained distance. Michelle turned to her team. Detain them all, she ordered. Read them their rights. Separate interrogations. She looked at Ryan. Mr. Garrett, she said, step over here, please, away from the others. Ryan moved to where she indicated. One agent stayed with him, not restraining but watching, making sure he didn't communicate with Morrison or the other guard. Michelle approached Morrison with a tablet in hand, turned it to face him. Mr. Morrison, she said, I'm showing you a warrant issued by Judge Marianne Cross of the Federal District Court, the real Judge Cross. This warrant authorizes us to arrest you for fraud, conspiracy, and impersonation. Do you understand these charges? Morrison was crying now, tears running down his face, ruining his professional appearance. She said it was legal, he sobbed, showed me board meeting minutes, showed me the deed restrictions, said the eviction was legitimate. Who is she? Michelle pressed. Trish, Morrison said. Patricia Holloway. She hired me 6 months ago, paid me $15,000 to coordinate this. For the eviction specifically, Michelle asked. For everything, Morrison admitted. The harassment, the false reports, the intimidation. She had a whole list of people she wanted removed from the community. Michelle looked at me, silent question. I nodded. Enough. We had what we needed. Where is Patricia Holloway now? Michelle asked Morrison. I don't know, he said. She was supposed to be here, watching. But I don't see her car. Morrison was right. Trish's silver Lexus wasn't visible. She'd sent her people but stayed away, maintaining deniability, letting Morrison and Ryan and the guard take the fall while she stayed clean. But we had her. Morrison's testimony, Ryan's recordings, the paper trail showing she'd hired them, paid them, directed their actions. We had her. Diane Santos approached from across the street. Phone still recording. Agent Torres, she said. I have video of everything, from the moment they arrived. Thank you, Michelle told her. We'll need a copy of that for evidence. Ben Rodriguez came over too. I called Judge Cross directly, he said. Told her someone was using her name on fake documents. She's on her way, very angry. Michelle smiled. Real judges didn't appreciate having their names forged. Cross would make sure the prosecution threw the book at everyone involved. An agent's radio crackled. Unit 2 reporting. Subject vehicle at 2847 Desert Rose is attempting to leave. Black SUV. Female driver matching description of Patricia Holloway. Michelle keyed her own radio. "Stop that vehicle," she ordered. "Detain the driver. Federal arrest warrant." She looked at me. "The SUV watching Emma," she explained. "Trish was in it, personally, watching your granddaughter's location, planning something." My stomach went cold. "Emma," I said. "Safe," Michelle assured me. "Unit 3 has her and Mrs. Park secured. 6 agents on that location. Nobody's getting near them." "What was Trish planning?" I asked. Michelle pulled out her phone, showed me intercepted text messages. "Trish to Morrison time-stamped 30 minutes ago. If grandmother doesn't cooperate, proceed with Plan B. Team 2 will handle the child. Pick her up from school. Say family emergency. Take her to Arizona border and hold until grandmother complies. Kidnapping, federal kidnapping, crossing state lines, the most serious charge possible." "She was going to take Emma," I said, voice barely working. "Hold her hostage to force me out." Michelle nodded. "But we stopped it," she said. "Emma never went to school. She's at Mrs. Park's with federal protection. Trish's Plan B team is sitting outside an empty school right now. We have them on surveillance. 3 more arrests pending." More sirens. Local police arriving now. Scottsdale PD coordinating with FBI. Detective Morrison, who I'd met before, stepped out of his cruiser, saw me, nodded with respect. "Agent Mitchell," he said. "Looks like you were right about the harassment pattern." "About all of it," I confirmed. He looked at the scene. Agents, detained suspects, neighbors recording, the full exposure of Trish's operation. "Where's Holloway?" he asked. "Being arrested 3 blocks from here," Michelle told him. "Caught surveilling the location where Agent Mitchell's granddaughter was staying. In possession of detailed plans to kidnap the child." Morrison whistled low. "That's federal," he said. 25 to life. "At minimum," Michelle agreed. A black FBI SUV pulled up. Rear door opened. Trish Holloway emerged in handcuffs, face red and furious, hair still perfect despite the arrest, makeup still flawless, maintaining her appearance even in custody. She saw me. Our eyes met across the space, hers filled with rage and disbelief, mine calm, steady, victorious. "You planned this!" she screamed. "Set me up! Entrapped me!" Michelle stepped between us. "Mrs. Holloway," she said formally, "you have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." "This is harassment," Trish continued. "I'm being persecuted for trying to maintain community standards." "You attempted to kidnap a 9-year-old child," Michelle said flatly. "You hired men to file false police reports. You forged court documents. You embezzled over $300,000 from your HOA. You're not a victim, you're a criminal." Trish looked around at the neighbors, at the cameras, at the evidence of her empire collapsing. "I did nothing wrong," she said, quieter now, the reality starting to penetrate. "Everything I did was for the community." Helen Park stepped forward from the crowd, small, elderly, brave. "You terrorized us," Helen said. "Made us afraid in our own homes, stole our money, destroyed families. You did it for power and greed. Nothing else." Other neighbors murmured agreement. Years of suppressed anger finding voice. Trish's legs buckled. Agents caught her, helped her stay standing. The mask finally cracking, the control finally breaking. The reality that she'd lost becoming undeniable. They loaded her into the FBI vehicle, drove her away. Morrison and the aggressive guard went in separate vehicles. Ryan stayed with Michelle and me. "And you did good," Michelle told him. "Everything recorded. Full confession from Morrison implicating Holloway. Judge Thornton's involvement documented. This is a solid case." "What happens to me?" Ryan asked. "You get immunity on state charges," Michelle said. "Federal witness protection if needed. New identity for you and your daughter if Holloway has connections we don't know about. You're going to testify. Help us build the wider case. And then you're going to rebuild your life as the man you want to be." Ryan looked at me. "I'm sorry," he said. "For all of it, for the calls, for scaring Emma, for being part of this." "You made it right," I told him. "That counts for something. Not everything, but something." Michelle's phone rang. She answered, listened, smiled. "Judge Thornton just resigned," she said. "His wife called the FBI. She's providing testimony, bank records, communications, everything, says she's done protecting him." The whole conspiracy was unraveling. Not just Trish, not just Morrison. The entire corrupt system she'd built. Judges, contractors, accomplices, all of it coming down. Michelle looked at me, saw something in my face. "Understood." "You should get Emma," she said. "Take her home. Show her that you kept your promise. Show her that good people win sometimes, that standing up matters, that she was right to trust you." I nodded, couldn't speak, emotion choking me. "Sarah," Michelle added, "what you did today, the patience, the strategy, letting them commit before we moved, that's why you're one of the best agents I've ever worked with. You think like a grandma, but you operate like a professional. That combination is what kept Emma safe and put Trish in handcuffs." "I just wanted to protect my family," I said. "That's what makes you dangerous," Michelle replied. "People who fight for themselves give up when it gets hard. People who fight for their families never stop. Trish picked the wrong fight." I drove to Helen's house, hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. That post-crisis tremor that comes when your body realizes the threat has passed and it's safe to fall apart. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, focused on breathing, on driving straight, on getting to Emma. The FBI presence was still visible on Helen's street, agents standing down but still positioned, still watching, making sure no threats remained, making sure the community understood that Emma was under federal protection, that anyone targeting her would face the full weight of federal law enforcement. Helen must have been watching for me. The door opened before I could knock. She stepped back. "Let me see inside. Let me see Emma sitting on the couch, safe, whole, alive." Emma looked up, saw me, her face transformed, joy, relief, love. She launched herself off the couch, ran across the room, crashed into me hard enough to knock me back a step. She threw her arms around my neck, held on so tight I could barely breathe, her small body shaking, crying now, all the fear she'd been holding in all day coming out in sobs against my shoulder. "You came back," she whispered between sobs. "You came back. You came back." "I promised," I reminded her, voice breaking. "I will always come back. Always." We stood there in Helen's doorway, grandmother and granddaughter, holding each other, crying together, feeling the relief of survival, of victory, of promises kept. Helen watched us with tears in her own eyes, understanding, remembering her own losses, her own son who never came home, finding some measure of peace in seeing a different ending, seeing a child who didn't lose someone else. "Thank you," I mouthed to Helen over Emma's head. She nodded, no words needed. Emma finally pulled back, looked up at me with red swollen eyes. "Is she gone?" Emma asked. "The bad lady. Is she really gone?" "Yes, baby," I confirmed. "She's been arrested. She's going to jail for a very long time. She can't hurt anyone anymore." "What about the men?" Emma pressed. "The ones watching us?" "Arrested too," I said. "All of them. The FBI has them. They're going to testify against her. Help make sure she stays in prison." Emma took a shaky breath, processing, trying to believe it was really over. "Can we go home now?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Let's go home." We drove back to our house slowly. No rush, no urgency, just grandmother and granddaughter going home. Emma held my hand the whole way, didn't let go even when I needed to shift gears, held on like she was afraid I might disappear if she released her grip. The street was quiet when we arrived. The FBI vehicles had left. The police had left. Morrison and the guards had been transported to federal holding. The evidence had been collected. The scene had been processed. All that remained was our house, our flag, our home. Neighbors were still outside, though, not hiding anymore, not afraid anymore. They came out as we pulled up. Diane Santos, Ben Rodriguez, the elderly Wheelers, Margaret Yee, families Trish had terrorized, people who'd lived in fear. They came to witness, to celebrate, to reclaim their community. Ben approached as I got out of the car, put a hand on my shoulder. "Thank you," he said simply, "for all of us." Diane was crying, hugging her daughter, both of them free from the fear that had controlled their lives. Margaret Yee bowed slightly, traditional gesture of respect. "Sarah Mitchell," she said in accented English, "you are very brave. My family thanks you." Others came forward, shared their stories, talked about what Trish had done to them, how long they'd been afraid, how good it felt to see her arrested, to see justice, to see that bullies could lose. Emma watched it all, saw the community coming together, saw the impact of standing up, saw that her grandmother's fight hadn't just protected their family, it had freed everyone. That night we sat on the porch together, Flag flying above us exactly where it had always been. Neighbors stopping by to check on us, to say thank you, to share their own stories of Trish's abuse, to celebrate the fact that she was gone, that they were safe, that the community could start healing. Helen brought over cookies, homemade, still warm, sat with us on the porch steps, the three of us eating cookies and watching the sunset. I still can't believe it's over, Helen said quietly. 8 years. 8 years of being afraid, of doing what she said, of hating myself for being a coward. And it took one person standing up to end it. You stood up too, I reminded her, gave me the evidence, voted against her at the meeting, warned me, protected Emma today. You were brave. Helen shook her head. You were brave. I was just tired of being afraid. Sometimes that's the same thing, I said. Emma leaned against me, tired, safe, home, processing the day, processing what she'd learned. Grandma, she said, can I ask you something? Always, I replied. You were scared today, she said. I could tell, but you did it anyway. How did you do that? I thought about my answer, about what Emma needed to hear, about what truth would serve her. I thought about you, I told her, about keeping my promise, about making sure you were safe. When I was scared, I reminded myself that you needed me to be brave, and that made the fear smaller. What if I need to be brave someday? Emma asked, and I don't have someone to be brave for? Then you be brave for yourself, I said. You be brave because you deserve a life without fear. You be brave because you matter, because your safety matters, because standing up for right is more important than being comfortable. You be brave because that's who you are. You're Emma Mitchell. You survived things that would break adults. You're already the bravest person I know. Emma smiled, small but real, the first genuinely happy smile I'd seen from her in weeks. I want to be like you when I grow up, she said. You can be better than me, I told her. You can be the person who doesn't need to fight because you'll live in a world where we fought all the battles. You can be the person who's brave for joy instead of survival. You can be whoever you want to be. What if I want to be FBI like you and Grandpa? Emma asked. Then we'll make sure you're ready, I promised. But for now, you just get to be 9. You get to draw with chalk. You get to eat cookies. You get to be a kid. The fighting is done, for now at least. We sat there as the sun set, watched the flag move in the evening breeze, red and white stripes catching the last light, stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky, the POWMIA flag beneath the stars and stripes. Never forget, always remember. Keep the promises. Felt the peace of knowing the fight was over. The threat was contained. The danger had passed. Trish Holloway would spend the next decade or more in federal prison learning that power without accountability always ends the same way. In handcuffs. In disgrace. In the absolute certainty that she'd lost. Emma was safe. I'd kept my promise. My family was protected. My home was secure. And tomorrow when I raised that flag, it would mean something even more powerful than before. Not just honor for those who served, not just remembrance for those who died, but proof that standing your ground matters, that protecting what's yours is worth the fight, that sometimes the good guys win, that sometimes when you're brave enough and strong enough and determined enough, justice isn't just a concept, it's a reality. Trish Holloway learned that lesson the hard way. In federal custody, facing 25 to life, while Emma and I sat on our porch, in our home, under our flag, free, safe, victorious, together. They say justice delayed is justice denied, but I learned justice isn't just about punishment, it's about restoration, healing, and teaching the next generation that standing up for right isn't optional, it's essential. The interrogation of Patricia Holloway happened 6 days after her arrest. Federal holding facility, interview room with cameras and recording equipment, Trish's attorney present, high-powered criminal defense lawyer from Phoenix, expensive suit, confident demeanor, the kind who usually got clients off or reduced charges significantly. But even he looked worried. Michelle Torres conducted the interrogation. I watched from behind the one-way glass. FBI psychologist Dr. Chen beside me, evaluating, taking notes, building a psychological profile that would help understand Trish's motivations, help predict her behavior, help determine if she was genuinely remorseful or just strategically sorry. Trish looked different in custody. No makeup, no styled hair, orange jumpsuit instead of designer clothes. 6 days without the armor of appearance had stripped away the polish. What remained was a tired woman in her late 50s, facing the destruction of everything she'd built. Michelle started with the easy questions: background, history, establishing timeline, letting Trish talk, building rapport, making her comfortable before the hammer fell. Trish answered carefully, attorney coaching her with glances, reminding her not to say too much. But Trish wanted to talk, wanted to explain, wanted someone to understand. I ran that HOA for 8 years, Trish said, protected property values, maintained standards, made Saguaro Hills the most desirable community in Scottsdale. Michelle didn't argue, just nodded. Let her continue. I worked hard, Trish went on, devoted my time, my energy. And what did I get? A volunteer position, no salary, no appreciation, just constant complaints, constant demands, people wanting exceptions to rules, people thinking they were special. Her voice rising, anger breaking through. So you felt you deserved compensation? Michelle prompted gently. I deserve something, Trish snapped. I was doing the work of a professional property manager. Those companies charge $8,000 to $10,000 a month. I was doing it for free. Creating my own management company was just fair payment for services rendered. Michelle pulled out financial records. Your shell company billed $8,500 per month, Michelle noted. That's over $100,000 per year for a volunteer position you claim you were doing for free. I earned that money, Trish insisted. Did the homeowners vote to pay you a salary? Michelle asked. Silence. Trish looked at her attorney. He shook his head slightly. Don't answer. Mrs. Holloway? Michelle continued, did the HOA board authorize payment to your management company? More silence. Did the residents know you were billing the HOA for services you were supposed to provide as an elected volunteer? Michelle pressed. They wouldn't have understood, Trish finally said. They would have rejected it, but that doesn't mean it wasn't fair. Michelle let that statement hang, then shifted. Tell me about the harassment, she said. The families you targeted? Why them specifically? I didn't target anyone, Trish protested. I enforced rules equally. Michelle pulled out a photo. Nicole Brennan, single mother, lost custody of her son. Nicole Brennan questioned your financial management, Michelle stated, asked to see detailed budget reports. 1 month later, you filed the first of 3 false CPS reports against her. Coincidence? She was unstable, Trish said. I was concerned for the child's welfare. The CPS investigator found no evidence of neglect or abuse, Michelle countered. But you continued filing reports, testified in her custody hearing that she was an unfit mother. Your testimony was cited by the judge in awarding custody to the father, a father with a DUI record and history of domestic violence. Trish's face went pale. She hadn't known about the father's record, hadn't cared enough to check, had just wanted Nicole destroyed. I didn't know about his record, Trish whispered. Because you didn't care, Michelle said flatly. You weren't protecting a child. You were punishing a woman who challenged your authority. Dr. Chen leaned forward beside me, watching Trish's micro-expressions, the way her hands moved, the tension in her shoulders. Classic narcissistic personality disorder, Dr. Chen murmured. Any challenge to her authority perceived as existential threat. She genuinely believed she was right, that her victims deserved their treatment. Michelle continued the interrogation, showed photo after photo. Helen Park, Diane Santos, Margaret Yee, the disabled veteran, the elderly couple, families forced out, lives destroyed. With each photo, Trish's defenses crumbled a little more, started crying quietly. Mascara she wasn't wearing couldn't run, just tears on a bare face. I never meant to hurt anyone, Trish sobbed. I just wanted respect, wanted people to appreciate what I did, wanted them to follow the rules I worked so hard to create. You wanted control, Michelle corrected. And when people wouldn't give it to you, you destroyed them. Trish shook her head. Denial, but weak, unconvincing. Let's talk about the gambling, Michelle said, shifting again, keeping Trish off balance. That's not relevant, Trish's attorney interjected. It's extremely relevant, Michelle countered. Goes to motive. Explains where the embezzled money went. She pulled out casino records. MGM Grand, Bellagio, Caesar's Palace, high roller tables, VIP lounges, comped suites, $900,000 in gambling losses over 6 years, Michelle read. weekly trips to Las Vegas, sometimes twice a week. You weren't stealing to get rich. You were stealing to feed an addiction. Trish's face crumpled. This was her secret shame, the thing even her husband hadn't known, the reason she'd needed the money so desperately. I had it under control, Trish whispered. You embezzled $340,000, Michelle said. That's not having it under control. That's being completely consumed. I was going to win it back, Trish said. Just needed one more good weekend, one big score. Then I'd return the money. No one would ever know. Classic addiction thinking, Dr. Chen noted beside me. The same rationalization every compulsive gambler uses. The same lie they tell themselves. One more bet. One more hand, one more spin. The next one will fix everything. Michelle leaned forward, voice softer now, almost sympathetic. Mrs. Holloway, she said, I need you to understand something. You didn't just steal money. You destroyed families. You terrorized vulnerable people. You tried to kidnap a 9-year-old child. That last one broke Trish completely. She doubled over sobbing, the attorney putting a hand on her shoulder. I wasn't really going to hurt her, Trish gasped between sobs. Just scare Agent Mitchell. Make her understand she couldn't win. Make her leave. You had a team watching Emma's school, Michelle stated. You had detailed plans to grab her during pickup, transport her to a location near the Mexican border, hold her until Sarah Mitchell complied with eviction demands. That's not scaring someone. That's kidnapping. Federal kidnapping. 25 years to life. Trish kept crying. No words now. Just the sound of a person realizing the full weight of what they'd done, the lives they damaged, the future they destroyed, their own and everyone they'd touched. Dr. Chen stood. She's done, he said, emotionally exhausted, psychologically broken. She'll take whatever plea you offer. She knows she's lost. After the interrogation, Michelle and I sat in her office, reviewed the recording, discussed next steps. She'll plead guilty, Michelle said. Her attorney knows we have her cold. 300 hours of evidence, 20 witnesses ready to testify, paper trail that's irrefutable. He'll negotiate the best deal he can and advise her to take it. What about Judge Thornton? I asked. Separate case, Michelle explained. Federal prosecutors handling it independently. But his wife's cooperation is devastating. She kept copies of everything. Emails, bank records, the fake court documents he signed. He'll plead guilty too, probably get 8 to 10 years. Disbarred, pension forfeited, complete destruction of a 30-year legal career. 3 weeks after Trish's arrest, I sat in the FBI Phoenix field office conference room with Michelle Torres and SAC Rodriguez. The smell of coffee and paper filled the air, boxes stacked against the wall, 8 years of HOA financial records, bank statements, corporate filings, witness testimony transcripts, email archives, text message logs, the accumulated proof of systematic corruption. Michelle had her laptop open, spreadsheet visible, numbers that told a story of greed and control. She walked SSC Rodriguez through the timeline, year by year, dollar by dollar. The evolution of Trish Holloway from HOA president to criminal enterprise. Years 1 and 2, Michelle explained. Small-scale theft, padding invoices by 10 to 15%, testing whether anyone would notice. Total theft approximately $15,000. Classic embezzler behavior. Start small, build confidence, normalize the crime. SAC Rodriguez made notes. Former prosecutor. He knew how to build cases, knew what juries needed to see, knew how to make numbers tell human stories. Years 3 and 4, Michelle continued. Creation of shell companies, Desert Bloom Services for landscaping, Pinnacle Protection Group for security. Both registered to Trish through various INI LLCs. Total theft $80,000. More sophisticated, more brazen. Growing confidence that she wouldn't be caught. And years 5 through 8, I added. Full-blown embezzlement. Fake vendors billing for services never rendered. Security contracts for companies that didn't exist. Legal fees to attorneys who withdrew when they realized the cases were fraudulent. Total theft $245,000. SAC, Rodriguez looked up from his notes. Total across all years, he asked. 340,000 confirmed, Michelle said. Possibly more if we find additional fake vendors. Financial forensics is still reviewing the complete records. Victim count, Rodriguez pressed. 17 initially identified, I told him. But investigation expanded that. We're now at 31 families directly harmed. Michelle pulled up another spreadsheet, color-coded. Red for families forced to sell and leave. Yellow for families who paid illegal fines. Green for families who suffered other harassment. 12 families forced out, Michelle detailed, sold their homes under duress. Some took significant financial losses. Some are still trying to recover. 8 families paid substantial fines for violations that either didn't exist or weren't actually violations per the covenant. Total fines paid approximately $78,000. She scrolled down. 6 families were subjected to false CPS investigations, Michelle continued. All investigations closed as unfounded. But the trauma remains. 3 couples divorced partly due to the stress. 2 individuals attempted suicide, 1 successfully hospitalized and treated. This is Nicole Brennan, single mother who lost custody of her son partly based on Trish's testimony as concerned neighbor. 6. Rodriguez's face hardened. He had kids, grandkids. The idea of weaponizing child protective services against families made his professional demeanor crack. We're charging her with everything, he said. Not a question. A decision. Everything, Michelle confirmed. Embezzlement, wire fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy, filing false reports, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and the big one, attempted kidnapping, federal charges, minimum 25 years if she's convicted on all counts. She won't go to trial, I said. Her attorney knows the evidence. He'll negotiate a plea. What are we willing to accept? Rodriguez asked. I thought about Emma, about Nicole Brennan, about Helen Park, about all the families whose lives Trish had destroyed. Thought about what justice looked like, what would give victims closure, what would protect future communities. 12 to 15 years, I suggested. Full restitution. Lifetime ban from any HOA involvement. Psychiatric treatment, no early release. She serves the full sentence. Rodriguez nodded. I'll talk to the U.S. attorney, he said. See if that's acceptable. But Sarah, you understand you can't be involved in plea negotiations. You're a victim. That's a conflict. I understand, I confirmed. This is your case now. Michelle's case, I'm just a witness. But Rodriguez looked at me with understanding. Knew that even though I wasn't officially on the case, my input mattered. My perspective as both victim and experienced agent carried weight. There's something else, Michelle said. The wider investigation. Judge Thornton, the network of corrupt HOA presidents across Arizona. Tell me, Rodriguez replied. Judge Lawrence Thornton resigned 2 days after Trish's arrest, Michelle explained. His wife Evelyn contacted us. She's cooperating, providing bank records, communications, testimony about his involvement in the forgery scheme. Michelle pulled up images, bank transfers, campaign contribution records, communications between Trish and the judge. Trish funneled $45,000 to Judge Thornton's re-election campaign over 3 years, Michelle continued. In exchange, he signed fake court documents, eviction orders, liens, judgments, all fraudulent, all designed to terrorize HOA residents into compliance. How many fake documents? Rodriguez asked. 7 that we've confirmed, Michelle said. Possibly more. We're cross-referencing his signature on all documents filed in his court for the past 5 years, looking for other forgeries. And the HOA network, I prompted. Michelle opened another file. This is where it gets big, she said. Trish wasn't working alone. She was part of a network, monthly meetings with other HOA presidents. They called it the Arizona Community Leadership Forum. Sounds legitimate, wasn't? What were they really doing? Rodriguez asked. Sharing strategies for theft and control, I answered. Trish provided detailed notes from these meetings, found them during the search of her home. They discussed embezzlement techniques, how to create shell companies, how to intimidate residents, how to identify and target vulnerable families. It was a training program for HOA corruption. Michelle pulled up a map. Arizona, red dots marking locations. 23 HOA presidents confirmed as participants, Michelle said. Communities across Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff, Sedona. Estimated 200 families victimized. Estimated theft totaling $4.2 million across all communities. Rodriguez sat back, processed the scope. This is a RICO case, he said quietly. Could be, Michelle agreed. Organized criminal enterprise. pattern of racketeering, multiple perpetrators. Interstate implications if any of the shell companies were registered out of state. We're coordinating with the FBI's white-collar crime division in Washington. They're interested. How long to build it? Rodriguez asked. 6 months minimum, Michelle estimated. Maybe a year. We need to flip some of the smaller players, get them to testify against the organizers, build the conspiracy case piece by piece. Rodriguez looked at me. Sarah, he said, we want you on this task force. Part-time, consulting role. You can't lead it because of your involvement in the Holloway case. But your financial crimes expertise is exactly what we need. I thought about Emma, about the promises I'd made, about being home for her, about not letting work consume my life the way it had after Tom died. 2 days a week I negotiated. Home by 6 p.m., no overnight travel. Emma comes first. Agreed, Rodriguez said. We'll make it work. After the meeting, Michelle walked me to my car. How are you doing? She asked. Really doing. Tired, I admitted. Having nightmares. Emma's having nightmares. We're both in therapy, working through it. That's healthy, Michelle said. Processing trauma, not pretending it didn't happen. I keep thinking about what could have happened, I told her. If Emma had gone to school that day, if they'd grabbed her, if your team hadn't been there. But we were there, Michelle interrupted. And Emma's safe. You can't torture yourself with what ifs. You did everything right. You protected her. You won. I know, I said. Intellectually, I know. But emotionally, I keep replaying it, keep seeing all the ways it could have gone wrong. Michelle put a hand on my shoulder. That's your brain trying to prepare for next time, she said, trying to find the threats you missed. But, Sarah, there is no next time. Trish is in custody. The threat is over. You can let your guard down. Can I asked. After 28 years of watching for threats, after losing Tom, after almost losing Emma, can I really just relax? You can try, Michelle said gently. For Emma's sake. She needs to see you healing, needs to know that fear doesn't last forever, that safety is possible. She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing and doing were different things. Saguaro Hills transformed over the months following Trish's arrest. The change wasn't instant, wasn't magical. Healing never is. It happened slowly, deliberately, one decision at a time, one meeting at a time, one neighbor reaching out to another neighbor at a time. Helen Park's leadership brought real change. She didn't rule. She facilitated. She didn't dictate. She listened. The first thing she did was schedule a community-wide meeting, not to announce decisions, to ask questions. What do you want this community to be? What matters to you? What needs to change? 200 people came, largest meeting in HOA history. They broke into small groups, discussed, debated, dreamed, came back together with ideas, with hopes, with vision for what Saguaro Hills could become. The new HOA covenant was written collectively, not by lawyers, not by board members, by residents. Working groups spent months reviewing every rule, every restriction, every requirement, asking one simple question: does this create community or control? Anything that felt like control got eliminated or rewritten. Paint color restrictions relaxed. Only requirement was maintaining property. How you maintained it was your choice. Flagpoles explicitly protected. Pet restrictions rewritten to comply with federal law and basic courtesy. Parking rules simplified. Common sense replacing arbitrary control. Monthly community meetings became actual discussions, not dictatorships. Helen chaired them with firm kindness. Everyone got to speak. Every concern got addressed. Votes were taken. Results respected. Democracy in action. Small scale but real. Financial transparency became absolute. Every dollar accounted for. Monthly reports posted online. Annual audits by independent accountants. Budget decisions made collectively. No more secret contracts. No more hidden payments. No more trust me governance. The embezzled funds created opportunities nobody had imagined. $420,000 recovered and redistributed. The new board spent 3 months deciding how to use it, held community forums, gathered input, made decisions together. Illegal fines refunded first. Families who'd paid thousands in bogus violations got their money back. Some cried when they received the checks. Not because of the money, because of the validation. Because someone finally said you were right and she was wrong and here's proof. Families forced to sell their homes received compensation. Not enough to undo the damage. Nothing could give back the years lost, the memories unmade, the sense of violation. But acknowledgement mattered. The community saying, "We see what was done to you. We're trying to make it right." Remaining funds invested in infrastructure, new playground, equipment designed for all abilities. Ben Rodriguez's suggestion. His grandson had cerebral palsy. Most playgrounds excluded him. This one would welcome every child. James Patterson, the disabled veteran, consulted on design, wheelchair-accessible ramps, sensory-friendly spaces, equipment for different physical abilities, swings that accommodated wheelchairs, climbing structures with multiple difficulty levels. Inclusive by intention, not accident. The playground construction became community event. Volunteers helping contractors, neighbors working side by side, Diane Santos providing lunches, Margaret Yee teaching children about teamwork, adults and kids together building something that represented new beginning. Community garden was Emma's idea. She'd asked why people couldn't grow food together, share vegetables, learn from each other. Simple child logic that adults had complicated away. Helen loved it, made it happen. 20 raised beds built in the common area behind the community center. Each family could claim one, grow whatever they wanted, share surplus with neighbors. Margaret Yee immediately claimed a bed, started teaching traditional Asian gardening techniques. Diane Santos planted herbs for her catering business. The elderly Wheelers grew tomatoes and gave them away to everyone. Emma and I claimed a bed together, planted vegetables, tended them every evening, watched things grow from seeds to plants to food. The metaphor wasn't lost on either of us. From small beginnings, growth. With care and time and patience, abundance. The garden became gathering place. Neighbors who'd never spoken now talked while watering, shared advice about pests and soil, traded seedlings, planned potlucks around harvest. Monthly potlucks replaced tense board meetings. First Saturday of every month, families bringing dishes representing their cultures, sharing food and stories and laughter. Mexican food from Diane, Korean dishes from Helen, Vietnamese spring rolls from the Nguyen family who'd moved in after Trish's arrest, comfort food from the Wheelers, Middle Eastern cuisine from the newly arrived Khalil family. Tables set up in the community center. Children running around playing while adults talked. Real relationships forming. Real community emerging from the ashes of Trish's control. People learning each other's names, learning each other's stories. Learning that diversity made communities stronger, not weaker. Emma flourished in this environment. Made friends easily now, no longer the scared new girl. The established resident who knew everyone, who organized games at the playground, who invited new kids to join, who showed by example what welcoming looked like. She joined soccer team, midfielder, not the best player, but enthusiastic, committed, showed up to every practice, made every game, improved steadily, earned playing time through effort, not talent, learning that hard work mattered, that showing up mattered, that being part of team meant supporting others even when you weren't the star. Started playing trumpet in school band, Tom's instrument, her way of connecting to grandfather she barely remembered. The music teacher was patient, understood that learning instrument was about more than notes, was about discipline, focus, the satisfaction of gradual improvement. Notes awkward at first, screechy, off-key. Emma frustrated but persistent, practiced every day. 30 minutes after homework, sometimes tears of frustration, but she kept trying, kept improving, gradually finding the sound she wanted. Music filled our house again. Not perfect music, learning music, growing music, the sound of childhood and effort and hope. Tom would have loved it, would have sat with Emma teaching her breathing techniques, embouchure, how to make the trumpet sing instead of squawk. I did my best to fill that role. YouTube videos and patient encouragement and reminders that everyone starts somewhere. Emma still went to therapy, still processed trauma. Progress wasn't linear, good weeks and hard weeks. Nightmares sometimes, anxiety sometimes. Moments where old fears surfaced and she needed reassurance that home was permanent, that I wasn't leaving, that safety was real. But the nightmares became less frequent, less intense, replaced gradually by normal kid dreams, school anxiety, friend drama, whether she'd make the soccer team next year. age-appropriate worries replacing trauma responses. Her therapist noted the progress, noted how Saguaro Hills community healing supported Emma's individual healing, how watching neighbors transform fear into friendship gave her model for her own transformation, how seeing adults choose courage taught her courage was possible. The support group started the following week after Trish's arrest. Helen's idea, called it Saguaro Survivors, met Tuesday evenings at the community center, open to anyone affected by Trish's abuse, facilitated by a professional therapist, funded by the recovered embezzlement money. I attended the first meeting, not as a leader, as a participant, as someone who'd been targeted, who'd been afraid, who'd fought back but still carried scars. 23 people came. More than expected, more than hoped for. Faces I recognized from the neighborhood, faces I'd seen at the board meeting, faces that had watched from windows during Trish's arrest, faces that carried stories written in the lines around their eyes, in the way they held their shoulders, in the careful distance they maintained from each other, until the therapist invited them to sit closer, all carrying their own trauma, all ready to start healing, or at least ready to try, ready to speak words they'd kept silent, ready to share burdens they'd carried alone, ready to discover they weren't alone anymore. Nicole Brennan spoke first, told her story. Not the abbreviated version, not the sanitized summary, the whole truth, raw, painful, necessary. The harassment, the false CPS reports, the way investigators had come to her house, questioned her parenting, examined her home, looked at her son like he was a victim who needed rescuing from her. They asked Marcus if Mommy heard him, Nicole said, voice shaking but steady. My 8-year-old son. They took him into a room alone, asked him questions designed to get him to say I was abusive. He came out crying, asking me why the police thought I was bad, why they wanted to take him away. Nicole's hands twisted together, knuckles white. I had to explain to my child that sometimes people lie, she continued, that someone had told lies about Mommy, that the police had to check, had to make sure he was safe. But how do you explain that to an 8-year-old without destroying his sense of security? How do you tell him that adults can use the system meant to protect children as a weapon to hurt them? The custody battle, the way Trish had testified, described Nicole as unstable, emotionally volatile, unable to provide consistent care, painted a picture of a mother on the edge, a home in chaos, a child at risk. All lies, all designed to punish Nicole for daring to question HOA finances. The judge believed her, Nicole said. Patricia Holloway, respected HOA president, concerned neighbor, pillar of the community. Her testimony carried weight. My ex-husband's attorney used it, built a case that I was unfit, and the judge, who should have looked deeper, who should have questioned the motives, awarded custody to my ex. Her voice broke. I lost a year with my son, Nicole continued through tears. A year I can never get back. A year where Marcus lived with a father who drinks, who has a temper, who the court somehow deemed more stable than me because a woman I'd never wronged decided I needed to be destroyed. The suicide attempt, the darkness that had swallowed her, the moment she'd decided she couldn't bear the pain anymore, the pills in her hand, the note she'd written to Marcus explaining that Mommy loved him but couldn't fight anymore. And then the phone rang, Nicole said quietly. My sister, she didn't know what I was planning, just called to check in, to tell me about her day, to remind me I wasn't alone. And I put the pills down, went to the hospital, started treatment, started fighting my way back. She looked directly at me across the circle. But I was still broken, Nicole said. Still convinced I'd lost, that Trish had won, that bullies always won. Until I saw you standing up to her, fighting back, refusing to be intimidated. And I thought, if this woman can fight, if she can stand up to Trish for her granddaughter, maybe I can fight for my son. Maybe it's not over. Nicole's voice strengthened. Sarah's testimony helped, she continued. FBI investigation proved the CPS reports were false, malicious, weaponized. Judge is reconsidering custody now. My attorney filed a motion. We have a hearing in 3 weeks. My son might come home. After a year of court-supervised visits and weekend custody, he might actually come home. The room erupted in quiet applause, support, encouragement, celebration of hope. Others shared their stories. each one a variation on the same theme: power abused, trust violated, systems weaponized, lives damaged. Helen Park talking about the financial pressure, how she'd been HOA treasurer, how she'd noticed discrepancies, how she'd ask questions, polite questions, professional questions, questions any treasurer should ask. And Trish turned on me, Helen explained. Citations appeared daily: grass too long, mailbox crooked, paint fading, house numbers not properly visible from the street. Each citation $100. Each day a new violation. $15,000 in 6 weeks. Helen's voice carried decades of pain. But worse than the money was what she said about David, Helen continued. My son, my boy who died serving his country in Afghanistan. Trish started posting on the community Facebook page, suggesting his death wasn't in combat, suggesting maybe it was suicide. Maybe I was lying about his service to gain sympathy, to avoid criticism. The cruelty of that, the targeting of a mother's grief, the weaponizing of a Gold Star family's loss. I had to choose, Helen said. Fight back and defend my son publicly, share private details about his death, about his service, about things a mother shouldn't have to prove, or pay the fines and hope she'd stop. I chose to pay. I chose to protect David's memory by staying silent, and I've hated myself for it every day since. Diane Santos described her business struggles, how she owned a small catering company, how Trish had demanded exclusive contract for all HOA events at below-market rates, how when Diane refused, the retaliation began. She filed complaints with the health department, Diane said, anonymous complaints claiming my kitchen was unsanitary, claiming I'd served spoiled food at community events. All lies. But health inspectors had to investigate, had to shut down my kitchen during inspections. I lost contracts, lost clients who didn't want the controversy, lost reputation I'd spent 15 years building. The financial damage had been severe, nearly forced Diane into bankruptcy, nearly cost her the business she'd started from nothing, the business that supported her family, put her daughters through college, gave her pride and purpose. Margaret Yee spoke in accented English about discrimination, about being targeted because of language barriers, because her appearance marked her as other, because Trish could exploit cultural differences. She complained about my cooking, Margaret explained, said the smells from my kitchen violated community standards, filed noise complaints because I sang traditional songs, claimed I was running a legal business from my home when my adult children visited and their cars were parked on the street. The accumulation of small cruelties, each one designed to make Margaret feel unwelcome, unwanted, less than, other. My children begged me to move, Margaret said I didn't have to stay where I wasn't wanted. But I came to America 45 years ago for freedom, for the right to live without fear. I refuse to let one cruel woman take that from me. This is my home. I earned the right to be here. The elderly couple, the Wheelers, spoke about Trish's financial elder abuse, how she'd pressured them to approve special assessments they couldn't afford, how she'd threatened liens on their property if they couldn't pay, how she'd isolated them from other residents by spreading rumors about their mental competency. The disabled veteran who'd been harassed for having a service dog, cited for violating pet restrictions even though federal law protected service animals, forced to prove his disability, forced to share private medical records, forced to fight for rights that should have been automatic. The young mother reported to CPS for letting her children play outside, for allowing normal childhood activities in her own backyard, for not supervising every single moment because Trish had decided that independence meant neglect. Story after story, trauma after trauma, each person carrying wounds that wouldn't show on x-rays but were just as real, just as painful, just as requiring of treatment and care, but also hope. That was the transformation happening in the room. As each person spoke, as each story was witnessed and validated and believed, something shifted. The isolation that had kept them silent began to crack. The shame that had kept them separate began to dissolve. The fear that had kept them paralyzed began to transform into something else. Anger. Righteous anger. The kind that says this was wrong and I didn't deserve it and I refuse to carry this burden alone anymore. The therapist facilitated discussion about healing, about processing trauma, about rebuilding trust in systems that had failed them, about finding strength in shared experience, about the difference between victim and survivor. You are all survivors, the therapist said. You survived a systematic campaign of harassment and abuse. You survived systems that should have protected you being weaponized against you. You survived isolation and fear and the belief that no one would believe you or help you. You survived. That takes immense strength. The group became more than therapy, became friendship, became support network, became chosen family. People who understood because they'd lived it. People who wouldn't judge because they'd been judged unjustly. People who'd survived and were committed to helping each other not just survive, but thrive. They exchanged phone numbers, made plans to meet for coffee outside of group sessions, started a text chain for support between meetings, created a community within a community, built what Saguaro Hills should have been all along, a place where neighbors looked out for each other, where vulnerability was met with compassion, where asking for help was seen as strength, not weakness. Emma asked about the meetings, asked why I went, asked what we talked about. We talk about what happened, I told her, about how it made us feel, about how to feel better. Does that talking help? Emma asked. Sometimes, I said, talking to people who understand, people who've been through similar things. It helps to know you're not alone. Can kids come? Emma asked. There's a kids group, I told her. Mrs. Rodriguez leads it. Children who lived in the neighborhood during all of this, who saw things kids shouldn't see, who need help processing too. Can I go? Emma asked. Do you want to? I replied. Emma thought about it, the way she always thought, carefully, seriously. I think so, she said. I think I need to talk to other kids who are scared, who understand. So Emma joined the children's group, 6 kids total, ages 7 to 12. They drew pictures, played games, talked about fear and safety and what it meant when grown-ups fought, processing childhood trauma in age-appropriate ways. Emma came home from the first session quieter than usual. I worried, asked if she wanted to talk about it. The other kids understand, she said, about being scared, about not trusting adults sometimes, about feeling like home isn't always safe. They get it. How does that feel? I asked. Less lonely, Emma admitted. And that was the gift of the support group. For adults and children alike, the knowledge that trauma shared became trauma halved. That community could heal what isolation kept raw. 3 weeks after Trish's arrest, I received an unexpected email from Claire Holloway, Trish's estranged daughter, the elementary school teacher who'd cut off contact years ago. Agent Mitchell, the email read, I know you have no reason to trust me or want to speak with me, but I need to apologize. And I need to help. My mother hurt so many people. I tried to warn some of them, but I didn't do enough. I'd like to meet if you're willing, to explain, and to provide information that might help your case. Claire. I sat with that email for a day, discussed it with Michelle, with Emma's therapist, with Helen. Everyone had opinions. Some said meet her, some said stay away. All agreed it was my choice. I chose to meet. Coffee shop, public place. Michelle coming with me. Not because I thought Claire was dangerous, but because I needed backup. Needed someone who could read people, who could spot lies, who could help me understand if this was genuine or manipulation. Claire arrived 10 minutes early, sat in the corner, nervous energy visible from across the room. Early 30s, professional clothes, teacher aesthetic. Nothing like her mother except the bone structure. Same jawline, same eyes. But where Trish's eyes had been cold and calculating, Claire's were warm and wounded. She stood when we approached, extended her hand. Agent Mitchell, she said. Agent Torres, thank you for meeting me. We sat, Michelle positioned to observe. I led the conversation. Why did you want to meet? I asked directly. To apologize, Claire said immediately. For my mother, for what she did to you and your granddaughter, for everyone she hurt. I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I see what she did. I condemn it completely. You're not responsible for your mother's actions, I told her. But I'm responsible for my silence, Claire countered. I knew what she was. I knew she was capable of cruelty. I warned a few people. Nicole Brennan, one of the earlier families. But I didn't go to authorities, didn't file complaints, didn't do enough to stop her. Why not? Michelle asked. Fear. Claire admitted. And shame. My mother is a narcissist. Clinical diagnosis. I grew up with her psychological abuse, the manipulation, the control, the punishment for any challenge to her authority. When I finally broke free, got the restraining order, cut contact completely, all I wanted was distance, safety, peace. I didn't want to think about her anymore. Didn't want to be pulled back into her orbit. What changed? I pressed. You, Claire said simply. What you did. Standing up to her, exposing her, getting her arrested. You did what I was too afraid to do. And watching you protect Emma, seeing you fight for your family, it made me realize I had information that could help, that I had a responsibility to victims. She pulled out a folder, thick, obviously prepared. This is my mother's journal, Claire explained. She's kept detailed journals for 20 years, documents everything, her thoughts, her plans, her strategies. I have copies from when I still lived with her. They show her psychological state, her progression into criminal thinking, her targeting strategies. Claire slid the folder across to Michelle. There are 47 victims documented across 8 years, Claire continued. Not just Saguaro Hills, previous communities where she lived, where she ran HOAs. Same patterns, same tactics. She's been doing this for much longer than anyone realized. Michelle opened the folder, scanned pages, her eyes widening. This is evidence, Michelle said. Detailed evidence of premeditation, of systematic targeting, of conscious choice to harm people. It's everything, Claire confirmed. And it's yours. Use it to make sure she goes to prison for a very long time. Use it to help her victims. Use it however you need. Why give this to us now? I asked. You've had it for years. Because I was a coward, Claire said bluntly. Because I prioritized my own peace over other people's safety. Because I told myself it wasn't my responsibility. That I'd suffered enough. That I deserved to move on. She looked at me directly. But watching Emma on the news, Claire continued. Hearing her say that her grandmother taught her bad people don't win when good people stand up. That broke something in me. Made me realize that good people who do nothing are enabling bad people to win. I don't want to be that person anymore. We talked for another hour. Claire sharing her childhood. The emotional abuse, the control, the way Trish had destroyed Claire's relationship with her father. Sabotaged her engagement. Tried to ruin her teaching career when Claire finally cut contact. My mother doesn't love people, Claire explained. She collects them, controls them, and destroys anyone who won't be controlled. I spent 30 years trying to be good enough, trying to earn love that didn't exist, finally accepting that my mother is incapable of the love I needed. How do you feel about her arrest? Michelle asked. Relief, Claire admitted. Guilt about the relief. Grief for the mother I wish I'd had. Anger at the mother I actually had. It's complicated. That's healthy, I told her. Complicated is honest. You can grieve the relationship you deserved while being glad the person who hurt you is facing consequences. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Will you testify? Michelle asked. At sentencing, tell the court about the pattern of abuse, the psychological profile, the history. Yes, Claire said without hesitation. Whatever helps. Whatever puts her away long enough that she can't hurt anyone else. After Claire left, Michelle and I sat reviewing the journal excerpts. This changes everything, Michelle said. Shows long-term pattern, multiple communities, dozens more victims. This isn't just embezzlement. This is a career criminal who happened to use HOAs as her vehicle. Can we use it? I asked. Every word, Michelle confirmed. It's her own writing, her own thoughts, admissible as party admission, devastating at sentencing. Could be the difference between 12 years and 25. I thought about Claire, about the courage it took to provide evidence against your own mother, about choosing justice over family loyalty, about breaking generational cycles of abuse. She's brave, I said. She learned from you, Michelle replied, saw what standing up looks like, decided to do the same. The plea hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks after the arrest. Federal courthouse. Judge Marianne Cross presiding. Trish Holloway in orange jumpsuit and shackles. Attorney beside her looking resigned. The courtroom packed. Media in the back. Victims in the gallery. Community members who'd driven from Saguaro Hills to watch. Helen Park. Ben Rodriguez, Nicole Brennan, Diane Santos, Margaret Yee, 20 others, all there to witness justice. Michelle sat at the prosecution table, U.S. attorney leading the case. I sat in the gallery with Emma. She'd asked to come, asked to see what justice looked like, asked to understand what happened when bad people face consequences. Judge Cross called the court to order. Read the charges. 17 federal felonies, embezzlement, wire fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy, obstruction, witness tampering, filing false reports, attempted kidnapping. The attempted kidnapping charge carried the most weight, 25 years to life, crossing state lines with intent to hold a child for ransom, federal jurisdiction, serious time. How does the defendant plead? Judge Cross asked. Trish stood, shaking slightly, attorney supporting her elbow. Guilty, Your Honor, Trish said quietly, to all charges. The courtroom erupted, whispers, gasps, relief. Judge Cross gavelled for order. Mrs. Holloway, Cross said, do you understand that by pleading guilty you are waiving your right to trial, admitting to these crimes, accepting responsibility for your actions? Yes, Your Honor, Trish confirmed. Do you understand the sentencing guidelines for these charges? Cross continued. The minimum and maximum penalties you face. Yes, Your Honor. And you are pleading guilty of your own free will, Cross pressed. No one has coerced you or promised you anything beyond what's in the formal plea agreement. Yes, Your Honor, Trish repeated. Judge Cross reviewed the plea agreement. 12 to 15 years in federal prison. Full restitution of $342,000. 5 years supervised release after prison. Lifetime ban from any HOA involvement. Mandatory psychiatric treatment both in custody and after release. This is a fair agreement, Cross stated, given the severity of the crimes and the number of victims. Sentencing is set for 90 days from today. That will allow time for victim impact statements, for psychological evaluation, for the court to fully consider appropriate punishment. Cross looked at Trish directly. Mrs. Holloway, she said, you terrorized families, stole money, attempted to kidnap a child. You abused a position of trust, used HOA authority as a weapon, destroyed lives to protect your own greed and addiction. The sentence you receive will reflect the gravity of those actions. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Trish whispered. They led her away. Back to custody. Back to await sentencing. Back to face the reality that the next 12 to 15 years would be spent in federal prison. Emma watched silently, processing, learning. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, asking for statements, asking how victims felt, asking what justice meant. Nicole Brennan spoke, articulate, strong, transformed from the broken woman I'd met months ago. Justice today means my son might come home, Nicole said. Means the lies told about me are exposed. Means other families know they don't have to accept abuse, that they can fight back, that the system can work if good people use it. Helen Park spoke next. For 8 years I lived in fear, Helen stated. Today that fear ended. Patricia Holloway will spend over a decade in prison, will lose everything she stole through power and manipulation. That's not revenge, that's accountability. And accountability is the foundation of real community. Reporters turned to me. I'd avoided them mostly. But today felt different. Today felt like the right time to speak. I'm Sarah Mitchell, I said. FBI agent, grandmother, homeowner in Saguaro Hills. I moved there looking for peace, for a safe place to raise my granddaughter. Instead, I found corruption. I found a woman who believed power put her above the law, who believed vulnerable families were acceptable targets. I paused, let them get the quote. But I also found something else, I continued. I found neighbors who became allies, victims who became advocates, a community that remembered what community means. Today's plea agreement isn't just about one woman going to prison. It's about proof that standing up matters, that courage is contagious, that justice, real justice, is possible when people refuse to be silent. That night, Emma and I watched the news coverage together, saw Nicole's statement, saw Helen's, saw mine. Emma quiet throughout. After the news ended, Emma turned to me. Mom would be proud of you, she said. I felt tears start. Unexpected, unwelcome, but real. Your mom would be proud of both of us, I corrected. You were brave too. You survived all of this. You're still here, still strong. That's what would make her proud. Emma leaned against me, safe, home, together. And somewhere in federal custody, Patricia Holloway was learning what my family already knew. That love is stronger than fear, that community is stronger than control, that justice, when it finally comes, is stronger than any weapon wielded by bullies. She would have 12 to 15 years to think about that. We would have the rest of our lives to live it. The day Trish Holloway was sentenced, Emma asked me if justice feels good. I told her the truth. Justice doesn't feel good. It feels necessary. But what comes after? Rebuilding, healing, choosing hope. That feels like freedom. Federal courthouse. Phoenix. 3 months after the guilty plea. The day we'd all been waiting for. Sentencing day. The day numbers became reality. The day consequences became concrete. The day years and months and conditions transformed from legal abstractions into the shape of a woman's future. The courtroom filled early. Capacity crowd. Media in the back rows. Cameras outside because cameras weren't allowed inside. Print journalists with notebooks. Sketch artists preparing to capture the moment. This had become national news. HOA corruption, FBI investigation, attempted child kidnapping. The story had everything. Villain, victim, justice, redemption. Victims filled the gallery. 31 people requesting to speak. Judge Cross had scheduled 3 full days for victim impact statements. Today was day 3. The final day, my day to speak. Emma's day to watch. I debated bringing Emma. 9 years old. Did she need to see this? Did she need to hear the trauma? Did she need to witness the sentencing of a woman who tried to destroy our family? But Emma had asked to come, had said she needed to understand, needed to see what happened when bad people faced consequences, needed to know that standing up produced results, that courage mattered, that justice was real, not just theoretical. So I brought her, sat her beside me in the 3rd row, Helen Park on her other side, ready to take Emma out if it became too much, ready to shield her if needed, ready to be the buffer between childhood and the adult world's darkness. Trish entered in shackles, orange jumpsuit, no makeup, hair gray at the roots where the dye had grown out. 3 months in federal custody had stripped away the polish, the presentation, the armor of appearance. What remained was just a woman, tired, defeated, aged beyond her 59 years. She didn't look at the gallery, kept her eyes down, couldn't face the people she'd hurt, couldn't meet the eyes of families she'd destroyed. Shame or strategy, I couldn't tell. Maybe both. Judge Cross called the court to order, reviewed the charges, reviewed the guilty plea, reviewed the sentencing guidelines, 12 to 15 years recommended by the prosecution, defense asking for lower end, prosecution pushing for upper end. We will now hear from victims, Cross announced. Each person will have up to 10 minutes. Please be respectful. Please focus on impact, not vengeance. The first victim was Margaret Yee, elderly, dignified, walked to the podium with the careful steps of someone who'd learned not to show weakness. Your Honor, Margaret began, English accented but clear. I came to America in 1980, survived Vietnam War, survived refugee camp, survived starting over with nothing in a country where I didn't speak the language. I survived all of that. But I almost didn't survive Patricia Holloway. Her voice steady, no tears, just facts delivered with quiet power. She made me afraid in my own home, Margaret continued. Made me feel like I didn't belong, like I was less than, like my culture and my language and my way of life were violations. She used rules meant to create order as weapons to create pain. That is not American. That is not what I came here seeking. That is what I fled. Margaret turned slightly, looked at Trish. I forgive you, Margaret said, because carrying hate hurts me more than you. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting, does not mean your actions were acceptable. You must face consequences so others learn that cruelty has costs. She returned to her seat. Applause started. Judge Cross allowed it briefly, then gavelled for quiet. Next came the disabled veteran, James Patterson, 50s, wheelchair, service dog at his side, the dog Trish had tried to ban despite federal law. I served 23 years, Patterson stated. Army, multiple deployments, IED took my legs in Afghanistan, PTSD took my peace. This dog, he gestured down, this dog gave me my life back, gave me the ability to function, to live independently, to contribute to my community. His voice hardened. Patricia Holloway tried to take that from me. Patterson continued. Cited me for violating pet restrictions, demanded I prove my disability, asked for medical records, made me justify my service dog's existence every single day, made neighbors question whether I was faking, whether I really needed help, whether I was exploiting veteran status. Patterson leaned forward in his wheelchair. I defended this country, he said, gave my legs for it, and Patricia Holloway made me feel like I had to defend my right to exist in my own home. That is unconscionable. She deserves every year of the sentence this court imposes. More applause, more emotion, more validation that speaking truth mattered. Helen Park spoke next, shared her story about her son, about the financial pressure, about the choice between fighting and protecting her son's memory, about the guilt of staying silent. I want my son to be proud of me, Helen said, wherever he is. I want him to know I finally found my courage, that I finally stood up, that I helped stop the person who weaponized his death, that his service, his sacrifice, his memory will not be associated with the cruelty of Patricia Holloway, but with the justice that followed. Diane Santos, Nicole Brennan, the elderly couple, the young mother. One by one they spoke, each story different in details, but same in essence. Power abused, trust violated, lives damaged, each statement adding weight to the scales of justice. Then it was my turn. I stood. Emma squeezed my hand before letting go, walked to the podium, faced Judge Cross, felt the weight of everyone watching, everyone waiting to hear what the FBI agent would say, what the grandmother would say, how I would balance professional detachment with personal pain. Your Honor, I began. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. 28 years of service, Financial Crimes Division. I've investigated hundreds of criminals, put dozens in prison. I know how the system works. I know how justice operates. I thought I understood crime. I paused. Let that sink in. But I learned something from Patricia Holloway, I continued. I learned that the most dangerous criminals aren't always the ones with guns. Sometimes they're the ones with gavels, with rules, with authority they abuse. Sometimes they're the ones who smile while destroying you, who use systems meant to protect as weapons to harm. I looked at Trish, made her look at me. Mrs. Holloway tried to destroy my family, I stated. Targeted my granddaughter. Planned to kidnap a 9-year-old child. Emma lost her mother at 7. Lost her great-grandmother at 8. She survived more trauma than most adults. And Patricia Holloway looked at that vulnerable child and decided she was an acceptable target, a tool to use against me. My voice broke slightly, recovered, continued. I want to tell you about Emma, I said to Judge Cross, about a little girl who draws with chalk on driveways, who reads books above her grade level, who asks hard questions about justice and fairness and why bad people do bad things, who wanted to come here today because she needed to see that standing up matters, that courage produces results, that the system can work when good people use it. I gestured back to where Emma sat, small, brave, watching. Emma is why I fought back, I continued, why I documented everything, why I gathered evidence, why I refused to be intimidated, because I needed to teach her that bullies don't win, that fear doesn't last forever, that grandmothers keep promises, that home means safety, not just shelter. I pulled out photos, handed copies to the judge, to the prosecution, to the defense. These are photos of Emma's bedroom, I explained, before we moved to Saguaro Hills. Sparse, temporary, boxes still packed because we'd moved so many times. She didn't unpack because she'd learned not to get attached, learned that home was temporary, that loss was permanent. I showed another photo. This is her room now, I said. Unpacked, decorated, personal. She painted the walls herself, chose the color, put up posters, made it hers because she finally believed we were staying, finally trusted that this home would last. I looked at Trish again. You tried to take that from her, I said. Tried to make us leave. Tried to teach her that safety is an illusion, that promises get broken, that people who say they'll protect you can't actually do it. You failed. Emma is safe. Emma is home. Emma knows that bad people lose when good people stand up. I addressed Judge Cross directly. Your Honor, I'm asking for the maximum sentence within guidelines, I stated. Not for revenge, for protection, for deterrence, for the message it sends to other HOA presidents who think their position puts them above the law, for the communities who need to know that victims have recourse, for the children who deserve to grow up safe in their own neighborhoods. I paused. Final words. Patricia Holloway stole money, broke families, attempted kidnapping. She did all of this deliberately, methodically, over years. She had hundreds of chances to stop, to change, to choose differently. She never did. The sentence should reflect that, should ensure she can never hurt anyone else, should give her time to become the person she should have been all along. I returned to my seat. Emma immediately grabbed my hand, held tight, Helen putting an arm around both of us. Judge Cross called a recess. 30 minutes. Time to review all the statements. Time to consider. Time to prepare the ruling that would define the next decade or more of Trish Holloway's life. We went outside. Fresh air, Arizona sun hot and bright, Emma silent, processing. "Are you okay?" I asked her. "You were brave," Emma said, speaking in front of all those people, telling them about me. "Did it bother you?" I pressed. "That I talked about your room?" Emma shook her head. "It helped me understand," she said, "why this mattered so much, why you fought so hard. It wasn't just about the flag. It was about making me feel safe, about giving me a real home." She looked up at me with those old eyes and that young face. "Thank you," Emma said, "for fighting for me." I knelt down, hugged her, felt tears start, happiness and relief and gratitude that she understood, that she knew how much she was loved, how far I'd go to protect her. When court reconvened, Judge Cross looked tired, burdened, carrying the weight of all those stories, all that pain, all that responsibility to make the punishment fit the crime. "I have reviewed all victim statements," Cross began. "I have considered the defendant's guilty plea, her cooperation, her lack of prior criminal record, her age and health, all factors that typically warrant leniency." Trish's attorney sat forward hopefully. "However," Cross continued, "I have also considered the scope of the crimes. 31 families victimized over 8 years, $342,000 stolen, systematic harassment, abuse of position, weaponizing of systems meant to protect, and most seriously, the planned kidnapping of a 9-year-old child." Cross looked at Trish. "Mrs. Holloway, stand please." Trish stood, shaking, attorney supporting her elbow. "You held a position of trust," Cross stated. "HOA president, elected by your neighbors, given authority to serve the community. Instead, you saw that position as license to steal, to control, to destroy anyone who challenged you. You created a climate of fear in what should have been a community of support." Cross paused. Let the word settle. "Your targeting of children is particularly egregious," Cross continued. "False CPS reports against families, testimony and custody hearings designed to separate children from loving parents, and the attempted kidnapping of Emma Mitchell, a child who'd already suffered profound loss. You looked at that vulnerability and decided to exploit it. That reveals a level of cruelty that cannot be excused." The courtroom utterly silent, everyone waiting. "On the charge of embezzlement," Cross pronounced, "I sentence you to 7 years in federal prison. On the charges of wire fraud, mail fraud, and conspiracy, an additional 4 years concurrent. On the charges of filing false reports and obstruction of justice, an additional 3 years concurrent. On the charge of attempted kidnapping, 10 years consecutive to the above sentences." Cross looked up from the sentencing document. "Total sentence, 17 years in federal prison. No possibility of early release. Full restitution of $342,000 plus court costs, and victim compensation totaling an additional $127,000. Upon release, 5 years supervised probation, lifetime ban from any HOA board or management position, mandatory psychiatric treatment both in custody and post-release." The courtroom erupted, some cheering, some crying, some just sitting in stunned relief. 17 years. More than the prosecution asked for, more than anyone expected. Justice, real justice, concrete and certain. Trish collapsed, legs giving out. Guards caught her, helped her stand. She was crying, sobbing, the reality penetrating. 17 years. She'd be 76 when released, her life effectively over. Everything she'd built destroyed, everything she'd valued gone. Judge Cross gavelled for order. "Mrs. Holloway," Cross said, "I want to be clear. This sentence reflects the severity of your crimes, the number of victims, the deliberate nature of your actions, the breach of trust, and the targeting of children. You will serve every day of this sentence. You will have time to reflect on the harm you caused, time to become the person you should have been, time to understand that power without accountability always ends the same way. In custody, in disgrace, in the certainty that your victims survived and you did not break them." They led Trish away, back to federal holding, back to begin 17 years, back to a future that looked nothing like the one she'd imagined. Emma watched silently, witnessed the moment. The guards, the shackles, the woman being led away, justice visible and real. "Is it over now?" Emma whispered. "This part is," I confirmed. "The rest is up to us. How we heal, how we move forward, how we build the life we want." Outside the courthouse, media frenzy. Microphones, cameras, reporters shouting questions. Helen helped shield Emma, got her to the car. Let Nicole Brennan be the spokesperson. Let the victims who wanted to speak have their moment. Nicole stood in front of cameras, confident, strong, transformed from the broken woman I'd met months ago. "Justice today means 17 years, Nicole stated. 17 years where Patricia Holloway cannot hurt anyone, cannot steal, cannot terrorize families, cannot use systems meant to protect as weapons to harm. That's not revenge. That's accountability." She paused. "Let cameras capture the moment. To anyone else living under HOA abuse," Nicole continued, "document everything, reach out. You are not alone. You are not crazy. They are criminals. And criminals can be stopped if good people stand up. Sarah Mitchell proved that. We all proved that. Communities are stronger than tyrants. Always." The news coverage was massive. National, international. HOA corruption a systemic problem. FBI crackdown expanding. Calls for federal oversight, legislation proposed, reform movements starting. But for Emma and me, it was simpler. We went home, to our house, our flag, our neighborhood that was finally becoming a community. Saguaro Hills transformed over the months following sentencing. The change wasn't instant, wasn't magical. Healing never is. It happened slowly, deliberately, one decision at a time, one meeting at a time. One neighbor reaching out to another neighbor at a time. Helen Park's leadership brought real change. She didn't rule. She facilitated. She didn't dictate. She listened. The first thing she did was schedule a community-wide meeting, not to announce decisions, to ask questions. What do you want this community to be? What matters to you? What needs to change? 200 people came, largest meeting in HOA history. They broke into small groups, discussed, debated, dreamed, came back together with ideas, with hopes, with vision for what Saguaro Hills could become. The new HOA covenant was written collectively, not by lawyers, not by board members, by residents. Working groups spent months reviewing every rule, every restriction, every requirement, asking one simple question: does this create community or control? Anything that felt like control got eliminated or rewritten, paint color restrictions relaxed. Only requirement was maintaining property. How you maintained it was your choice. Flagpoles explicitly protected. Pet restrictions rewritten to comply with federal law and basic courtesy. Parking rules simplified. Common sense replacing arbitrary control. Monthly community meetings became actual discussions, not dictatorships. Helen chaired them with firm kindness. Everyone got to speak. Every concern got addressed. Votes were taken. Results respected. Democracy in action. Small scale but real. Financial transparency became absolute. Every dollar accounted for. Monthly reports posted online. Annual audits by independent accountants. Budget decisions made collectively. No more secret contracts. No more hidden payments. No more trust me governance. The embezzled funds created opportunities nobody had imagined. $420,000 recovered and redistributed. The new board spent 3 months deciding how to use it, held community forums, gathered input, made decisions together. Illegal fines refunded first. Families who'd paid thousands in bogus violations got their money back. Some cried when they received the checks. Not because of the money, because of the validation. Because someone finally said you were right and she was wrong, and here's proof. Families forced to sell their homes received compensation. Not enough to undo the damage. Nothing could give back the years lost, the memories unmade, the sense of violation. But acknowledgement mattered. The community saying, "We see what was done to you. We're trying to make it right." Remaining funds invested in infrastructure. New playground. Equipment designed for all abilities. Ben Rodriguez's suggestion. His grandson had cerebral palsy. Most playgrounds excluded him. This one would welcome every child. James Patterson, the disabled veteran, consulted on design, wheelchair-accessible ramps, sensory-friendly spaces, equipment for different physical abilities, swings that accommodated wheelchairs, climbing structures with multiple difficulty levels, inclusive by intention, not accident. The playground construction became community event, volunteers helping contractors, neighbors working side by side, Diane Santos providing lunches, Margaret Yee teaching children about teamwork, adults and kids together building something that represented new beginning. Community garden was Emma's idea. She'd asked why people couldn't grow food together, share vegetables, learn from each other. Simple child logic that adults had complicated away. Helen loved it, made it happen. 20 raised beds built in the common area behind the community center. Each family could claim one, grow whatever they wanted, share surplus with neighbors. Margaret Yee immediately claimed a bed, started teaching traditional Asian gardening techniques. Diane Santos planted herbs for her catering business. The elderly Wheelers grew tomatoes and gave them away to everyone. Emma and I claimed a bed together, planted vegetables, tended them every evening, watched things grow from seeds to plants to food. The metaphor wasn't lost on either of us. From small beginnings, growth. With care and time and patience, abundance. The garden became gathering place. Neighbors who'd never spoken now talked while watering, shared advice about pests and soil, traded seedlings, planned potlucks around harvest. Monthly potlucks replaced tense board meetings. First Saturday of every month, families bringing dishes representing their cultures, sharing food and stories and laughter. Mexican food from Diane, Korean dishes from Helen, Vietnamese spring rolls from the Nguyen family who'd moved in after Trish's arrest, comfort food from the Wheelers, Middle Eastern cuisine from the newly arrived Khalil family, tables set up in the community center, children running around playing while adults talked, real relationships forming, real community emerging from the ashes of Trish's control, people learning each other's names, learning each other's stories, learning that diversity made communities stronger, not weaker. Emma flourished in this environment, made friends easily now, no longer the scared new girl, the established resident who knew everyone, who organized games at the playground, who invited new kids to join, who showed by example what welcoming looked like. She joined soccer team, midfielder, not the best player, but enthusiastic, committed, showed up to every practice, made every game, improved steadily, earned playing time through effort, not talent, learning that hard work mattered, that showing up mattered, that being part of team meant supporting others even when you weren't the star. Started playing trumpet in school band, Tom's instrument, her way of connecting to grandfather she barely remembered. The music teacher was patient, understood that learning instrument was about more than notes, was about discipline, focus, the satisfaction of gradual improvement. Notes awkward at first, screechy, off-key. Emma frustrated but persistent, practiced every day. 30 minutes after homework, sometimes tears of frustration. But she kept trying, kept improving, gradually finding the sound she wanted. Music filled our house again. Not perfect music, learning music, growing music. The sound of childhood and effort and hope. Tom would have loved it, would have sat with Emma teaching her breathing techniques. Embouchure, how to make the trumpet sing instead of squawk. I did my best to fill that role. YouTube videos and patient encouragement and reminders that everyone starts somewhere. Emma still went to therapy, still processed trauma. Progress wasn't linear. Good weeks and hard weeks. Nightmares sometimes. Anxiety sometimes. Moments where old fears surfaced and she needed reassurance that home was permanent, that I wasn't leaving, that safety was real. But the nightmares became less frequent, less intense, replaced gradually by normal kid dreams, school anxiety, friend drama, whether she'd make the soccer team next year, age-appropriate worries replacing trauma responses. Her therapist noted the progress, noted how Saguaro Hills community healing supported Emma's individual healing, how watching neighbors transform fear into friendship gave her model for her own transformation, how seeing adults choose courage taught her courage was possible. The Saguaro Survivors Group continued meeting, membership growing as word spread, people from other HOA communities coming, sharing their stories, learning they weren't alone, building network of support and advocacy. Helen started an HOA reform organization, lobbying for state legislation, mandatory financial audits, term limits, homeowner protections, background checks for board members, using Trish's case as cautionary tale, as proof that reform was necessary. Nicole got her son back, full custody. The judge's ruling came down 6 weeks after Trish's sentencing. Marcus came home, mother and son reunited, healing together. Nicole starting over as the mother she'd always been, but now with legal recognition. I watched Marcus and Emma playing in the new playground one Saturday, both kids who'd survived trauma, both learning what normal childhood looked like, both given a second chance at safety. My FBI consulting work on the task force expanded. 2 days a week became 3. The HOA corruption network bigger than anyone realized. Not just Arizona, Nevada, California, New Mexico. Multi-state criminal enterprise. Hundreds of victims. Millions stolen. Donald Vickers, the ringleader, arrested 4 months after Trish's sentencing. RICO charges, leading a criminal organization, teaching HOA presidents how to embezzle, how to intimidate, how to build little empires of theft and control. His trial would take years, but the arrest sent shockwaves through the HOA industry, presidents resigning, boards demanding audits, homeowners organizing, reform spreading like ripples from a stone thrown in water. Michelle Torres and I became a formidable team. Her prosecution skills, my financial forensics expertise, together we built cases that held up, that resulted in convictions, that created precedent. We trained other agents, taught them what to look for, how to spot HOA corruption, how to build cases, how to protect victims. Our work expanding beyond individual prosecutions to systemic change. 1 year after Trish's arrest, I received a letter, Federal Bureau of Prisons. Thick envelope, unexpected. Inside, a letter from Patricia Holloway. Handwritten, 3 pages. Return address from Federal Correctional Institution in Dublin, California. I almost didn't read it. Almost threw it away. What could she possibly say that I needed to hear? What apology could undo the damage? What excuse could justify the crimes? But curiosity won, or maybe need for closure, or maybe hope that people could change. I opened the letter. Dear Agent Mitchell, it began. I don't expect you to read this. Don't expect you to believe me. Don't expect forgiveness or sympathy or understanding. I'm writing because my therapist says I need to face what I did, say it out loud, acknowledge the harm, not to make myself feel better, to start the process of becoming someone who wouldn't do those things. I was wrong about everything. The embezzlement, the harassment, the targeting of families, the plan to take Emma, all of it wrong. Cruel, indefensible. I told myself I was protecting the community, maintaining standards, doing difficult work nobody appreciated. Those were lies. Lies I believed because believing them was easier than admitting what I really was. A thief, a bully, an addict who funded her gambling by destroying families. The gambling consumed me. Every trip to Vegas, every hand of blackjack, every spin of the roulette wheel. I was chasing something I could never catch, trying to fill something that couldn't be filled. The high, the win, the moment of feeling powerful and lucky and in control. But I wasn't in control. The addiction controlled me, made me steal, made me lie, made me hurt people to hide what I was doing, made me see challenges to my authority as existential threats, because if anyone looked too closely, they'd discover the truth. I see that now, after a year of forced sobriety, a year of therapy, a year of sitting with the reality of what I did and who I hurt. I think about Emma, about planning to take her, about using a child as leverage, about inflicting trauma on someone who'd already suffered so much. That is who I was. That is what the addiction made me. That is unforgivable. I think about Nicole Brennan, about testifying against her in custody court, about contributing to a mother losing her child, about weaponizing systems meant to protect children, about the suicide attempt that happened because of my cruelty. That keeps me awake at night. I think about Helen Park, about using her son's death, about causing pain to a Gold Star mother, about exploiting grief for power. That shame will follow me forever. I think about all 31 families, all the lives I damaged, all the fear I created, all the homes I made unsafe. That is my legacy. That is what I did. Prison is teaching me things I should have learned decades ago. Humility, accountability, the reality that I'm not special, not better, not entitled to power or control or exemption from consequences. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I made my choices. I'm facing my consequences. I'm writing to say thank you for stopping me, for making sure I couldn't hurt anyone else, for protecting Emma when I was planning to harm her, for standing up when standing up was hard. You did what I should have done years ago. You chose right over easy, courage over compliance, protection over power. I hope Emma knows she's lucky to have you. I hope she grows up strong and brave and nothing like me. I hope she learns from your example, not mine. I hope she understands that one person standing up can change everything. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I see what I almost did to her. Tell her that grandmothers who keep promises are heroes, that families who fight for each other are what matters, that she deserves every bit of safety and love you give her. I won't write again. This is closure for me, processing, accountability, the first step in a very long journey to becoming someone my daughter might speak to someday. Someone who did terrible things but is trying to do better. 17 years is a long time. Long enough to become a different person. Long enough to teach other inmates to read, to facilitate addiction recovery groups, to use my financial skills helping women leaving prison with budgeting and planning, to turn the worst parts of me into something that helps instead of harms. I don't know if people can truly change, but I'm going to spend the next 17 years trying. Not for parole, not for redemption, for the simple fact that being who I was doesn't have to be who I am. Thank you for the lesson. Hard learned but necessary. Patricia Holloway. I read the letter 3 times, looked for manipulation, for excuse-making, for the narcissism that had defined her. Found some of it, old patterns hard to break, but also found something else, genuine remorse, actual accountability, the beginning of change. I showed the letter to Emma, let her read it herself, old enough to understand, old enough to process. Do you think she means it? Emma asked. I think she's trying, I said, trying to mean it. Whether she succeeds, only time will tell. 17 years is a long time to maintain a performance. At some point, if you keep acting like you're sorry, you become actually sorry. Should I forgive her? Emma pressed. That's up to you, I told her. Forgiveness isn't mandatory. It's not required for healing. You can acknowledge she's trying to change while still being angry about what she did. Both can be true. Emma thought about it, the way she always thought. Carefully, seriously. I'm glad she can't hurt anyone, Emma said. I'm glad she's in prison. But I hope she does change. I hope she becomes better, because people should get chances to be better, even people who did really bad things. That's very wise and, I told her, very mature. I learned it from you, Emma replied. 2 years after Trish's sentencing, Saguaro Hills held a dedication ceremony for the new playground. Memorial Day weekend. Flags everywhere, families gathering, community celebrating. The playground was beautiful. Modern equipment, safety surfacing, shade structures, accessible for all abilities, bright colors, laughter already filling the space. At the center, a bronze plaque, Sarah Mitchell and Nicole Brennan Community Playground, dedicated to courage, justice, and community healing. Helen gave a speech, short, meaningful, about transformation, about taking the worst moment in community history and building something positive from it, about choosing hope over fear, about never forgetting, but also never letting past trauma define future potential. Nicole spoke next, about survival, about fighting for her son, about learning that asking for help is strength, not weakness, about the community that had supported her through darkness. Then they asked me to speak. I hadn't prepared anything, didn't think I needed to. This wasn't my moment, this was the community's moment. But I stood, Emma beside me, Helen and Nicole flanking us, the community that had become family watching. 2 years ago, I began. I moved here looking for peace, for a safe place to raise my granddaughter, for somewhere we could heal from loss. Instead, I found corruption. I found a woman who believed power put her above accountability. I found a community living in fear. I paused, looked around at the faces, the families, the children playing on equipment that bore my name. But I also found something else, I continued. I found neighbors who became allies, victims who became advocates, people who'd been broken finding strength to help others heal. I found that courage is contagious, that standing up inspires others to stand up, that one person saying no can become a community saying never again. I gestured to the playground. This is more than equipment and safety surfacing, I stated. This is proof that communities can heal, that trauma can be transformed, that the worst moments can lead to the best outcomes if we choose growth over bitterness, if we choose community over isolation, if we choose hope. I looked at Emma. My granddaughter taught me about hope, I said, about resilience, about the courage it takes to trust again after loss, about believing in tomorrow when yesterday was painful. She's 9 years old, and she's already braver than most adults I know. Emma smiled, embarrassed but proud. This playground will serve children for generations, I concluded. Children who never knew Patricia Holloway, who never experienced the fear we survived, who will grow up in a community defined not by one woman's cruelty, but by many people's courage. That is our legacy. That is what matters. The crowd applauded. Children ran to try the equipment, Marcus and Emma leading the charge, racing to the swings, claiming the best spots, being children, being safe, being free. I stood with Helen and Nicole and Ben Rodriguez and Diane Santos and Margaret Yee and all the others who'd survived, watching children play, watching community thrive, watching proof that standing up produced lasting change. That evening, Emma and I sat on our porch, our ritual, our time, flag flying above us exactly where it had always been, red and white stripes catching the sunset, stars beginning to appear, the POWMIA flag beneath. Never forget, always remember. Grandma, Emma said, can I ask you something? Always, I replied. Was it worth it? She asked. All the fighting, all the stress, all the danger. Was it worth it? I thought about my answer, about what truth Emma needed, about what I'd learned. Yes, I said, it was worth it. Not because we won, not because Trish went to prison, not because we got justice, but because we proved something important. What did we prove? Emma pressed. That home is worth fighting for, I told her. That family is worth protecting. That communities matter, that standing up for right isn't optional, that bullies only win when good people stay silent, that courage inspires courage, that one person can make a difference. I put my arm around her. But more than that, I continued. We proved that you and I are a team, that we protect each other, that we keep promises, that we build the life we want instead of accepting the life others try to force on us. That is what makes it worth it. Emma leaned against me. Safe, home, together. I want to be like you when I grow up, she said. You can be better than me, I replied. You can be the person who doesn't need to fight because we fought the battles. You can be brave for joy instead of survival. You can be whoever you want. What if I want to be FBI? Emma asked. Like you and Grandpa? Then we'll make sure you're ready, I promised. But for now, you get to be 9. You get to play on playgrounds, you get to learn trumpet, you get to have friends, you get to be a kid. The fighting is done. For now, Emma said wisely. For now, I agreed. But when new fights come, and they will, you'll be ready, because you've learned what courage looks like, what justice requires, what community means. We sat in comfortable silence, watched the sunset, watched the sky turn purple, then deep blue, then black, watched stars emerge, watched the flag move in the evening breeze. My phone buzzed. Text from Michelle Torres. The vicar's trial is set. 6 months. They want you to testify. Expert witness on financial crimes and victim impact. Interested? I typed back. 2 days a week. Home by 6. Emma comes first. Michelle replied immediately. Deal. You're going to help take down the whole network. National impact, real change. I showed Emma the text. More work, I explained. Helping stop other bad people like Trish. Helping other communities. Is that okay with you? Emma nodded. As long as you come home, she said. As long as you keep your promises. Always, I told her. I will always come home. I will always keep my promises. That is what grandmothers do. We raised the flag together the next morning, our daily ritual. Emma's small hands on the rope next to mine, pulling it up, watching it climb, watching it reach the top and spread against the Arizona sky. Just like Grandpa's house, Emma said. The same word she'd said 2 years ago, but different now. Not hoping, knowing, certain. Just like Grandpa's house, I confirmed. Just like home. Tom would have been proud. Proud of Emma's strength. Proud of our stand. Proud that the flag he'd loved still flew. Still meant something. Still represented everything he'd believed in. Freedom, justice, courage, home. Patricia Holloway had tried to take those things from us. Had tried to make us afraid. Had tried to teach us that power mattered more than right. Had tried to break us. She had failed. We stood on our porch, grandmother and granddaughter, under our flag, in our home, in our community, safe, strong, free. The fight had been hard, the cost had been high, the fear had been real, but we had won. Not because I was FBI, not because I had resources, not because I was stronger or smarter or more powerful than Trish Holloway. We won because we refused to accept that bullies get to win, because we chose courage over comfort, because we believed that home was worth defending, that family was worth protecting, that standing up mattered even when standing up was hard. And now 2 years later, we had proof. A playground bearing our names, a community transformed, victims healed and healing, a criminal serving 17 years, legislation changing, a national movement growing, and most importantly, a 9-year-old girl who knew that promises could be kept, that grandmothers were protectors, that courage was possible, that justice was real. Emma would remember this, would carry it forward, would teach her own children someday, would pass down the lesson. Stand up, speak out, protect what matters, keep your promises. That was Tom's legacy. That was Jessica's memory. That was what I would leave behind. Not the cases I'd worked, not the criminals I'd caught, not the years with the FBI, but this moment, this child, this lesson. That good people don't back down, that families fight for each other, that home is worth defending, that the flag flying above us meant something real, something worth protecting, something worth passing to the next generation. Emma looked up at me, smiled, that genuine smile that showed she felt safe, that showed she trusted, that showed she believed in tomorrow. And in that smile, I saw everything that mattered. Everything we'd fought for, everything we'd won, everything we'd become. Free, safe, home, together, forever.